you have big shoes to fill. The giants came before you. They've written down the blueprint. They've handed it to you. It's up to you to pick it up, to soak it in, to read it, to cultivate it, to perfect it, to master it.
All right, guys. Hey, welcome back to Choices Not Chances. And we have Sergeant Major Brent Downing on today, as he was last episode, and we're going to go ahead and close out, let's say, that third deployment, and then go to that, catch up to current time, and then plans for the future. So, Brent, thanks for coming on and being flexible and making it on to kind of wrap a bow around the last half of your career here.
No, I appreciate it, brother. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, if you guys haven't seen part one yet, just go back one episode and catch part one for sure. We talked about Brent's call to service and why he wanted to participate. We talked about how 9/11 affected him just shortly after he depped in, and then he took us through his first deployment with 1st Battalion 4th Marines as a machine gunner, and then so we took us all the way up to coming home from that, and then today we're going to kind of kick off with that workup back with 1-4 now, and then going into the next 1-2 deployments, and how those deployments went. So if you want to pick up, I guess, right where we left off, kind of get back from that deployment. You're not a junior Marine anymore, and you're going to start taking on some more responsibility, I assume, for that next workup.
Yeah. So, we came back, and, you got to remember, this is the onset of, the Iraq War. So there wasn't very many Iraq War veterans walking around during those times.
Right.
And I mean, I remember the city of Oceanside held this huge parade for all of 1st Marines, all the 1st Marine Division units that were participating in the invasion and stuff. And literally we had this parade, and we're out in town in Oceanside in camis. So it's waivers had to be signed. So people aren't Marines, that might sound foreign to them, but Marines are not allowed to walk around in civilian town in camis. It's not authorized. But for this, we were. So, but as soon as we got back, went on a post-deployment leave, so I went back to my hometown. And one of my most vivid memories from that is, I linked back up with my best friend from high school, and we went and hung out with some people I went to high school with out in some field drinking some beer, and they're all talking about their first year at college and stuff. I just got back from fucking war. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
It was just a complete opposite experiences over the course of a year. And then my small town, Solani, even made me the Grand Marshal in this homecoming parade.
Nice.
Yes. I got a picture of me riding on top of a car. So, I mean, it was just, the red carpets were rolled out for us.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I mean, it's awesome that they did that. I mean, at least you don't have the experience, or we didn't collectively as a generation or as our war have the experiences of the guys before us. So that we obviously know is the wrong way. But that's too cool. That didn't continue all the way through 20-something years, but it is very it is very cool though that was the way you guys were welcomed home. And then so you guys get welcomed home, you get this red carpet laid out for you, but you're going to gear up to go right back, right?
Yep. So, I mean, as soon as we got back from our post-deployment leave, I mean, we pretty much got the warning order for fucking stand up. We're going back for round 2.
Mm-hmm.
We jumped right into a workup. We did a MUSOC qual, and I can't explain to you guys enough how different the preparation was to go to Iraq from back then to fast forward only 2 or 3 years later. We conducted amphibious assaults on beaches. Did a MUSOC qual for our workup to deploy to Iraq again. So
sure.
Literally went out on an LPD, and we splashed with our AAVs, hit the beach, went inland, assaulted a town, came back to the beach, fucking splashed, go back to the ship. That was our workup to go back to Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it's maybe necessary too, given the fact that you did it on the first pump going across that river. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's if you did it once, I mean, and they know the rivers are there, I think it's great. But can you get a little bit more detailed into what goes into MUSOC versus a regular MU workup for the actual grunt on the ship? Does it change much for the grunt? I ask because I've never done a MU in my career. I never did one. So What is the difference
So,
between a regular MEU and then the MEU SOC for us?
so like this is, we're talking Lance Corporal Downing 20 years ago. So, like my grasp of things back then isn't what it is now. And that was the only MEU I was ever part of.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
but what I remember, like we mobilized and like we would do intervals. Like we would go out on ship for, I think the first time was like 3 days. We'd come back a couple weeks later. We'd go back out on ship for like a week, come back, do it again. This time, 2 to 3 weeks, and then like we would do splashes. We would, hit a beach. We would conduct raids on like the Mount Town there at Pendleton. I remember like, I mean, it's the whole 9 yards. So like, I'll give it a story, a vivid memory in my head from doing that training is, we were loading up in the tracks, and this is in the well deck of an LPD. So if people don't know what an LPD is, like the whole back underneath the ship is a big giant open space where they keep all the amphibious assault vehicles in, and they literally flood that sucker, open up this big door in the back, and the AAVs drive right off and into the water. And they call it splashing because the AAV literally like goes in and damn near goes completely under and comes back up. It's the craziest thing. I don't know why anybody would do it, but we do it. But one of my most vivid memories is my track was the very lead track. So I had to walk all the way to the track, and like they started to flood that sucker, and there was about ankle high, actually more than that, maybe about shin high water already. So I remember getting in that track, and like my fucking boots are soaked, and like we get in the back of the track, and like you splash, and like water's coming in, and then I mean, if you got motion sickness, like tracks are not the boat for you, buddy.
No bueno.
Yeah, and then we splash, we hit the beach, and then we're on that track for hours, and then we get to an attack position. We assault the Mount Town, we dismount, assault the Mount Town, do mount against an OPFOR, and then once the raid's over, get back into AVs, and then they drive us back to the beach. And then that particular one I'm recalling, we actually spent the night on the beach, so we sat in the defense, and it was the coldest fucking night ever.
Oh yeah.
And I remember before I stepped off, I was like, that old saying, like, pack light, freeze the night.
Oh yeah.
I remember everybody in my machine gun squad was like, fuck yeah, we're gonna go light, we're only gonna take our bivy sacks and a poncho liner, maybe not even a poncho liner. I think we just took our bivy sacks, and like my socks were fucking froze wet. And then, dude, that was the coldest I've ever been in the Marine Corps because the wind was coming off the water.
Oh yeah.
We froze our fucking dicks off.
And you were wet already.
Yes.
Oh man. Yep.
Yeah.
I understand the sentiment completely. And so for that workup, are you a squad leader from the beginning for that workup?
I believe so. So I can't remember if I didn't explain this last time. So during my first deployment, we were TO. So we had a full machine gun section, which like is just crazy because never in Marine Corps history is like the Marine Corps ever TO in anything, right?
Ever.
But for the invasion, we were absolutely TO. Like they plussed us up, man. The Marine Corps put their best foot forward. Going back for OIF2, that wasn't the case. We were down. So we dropped from your TO 3-man machine gun team down to 2-man machine gun team. Oh, and by the way, we were so shorthanded that, I had to be a squad leader / team leader. So
check
one team. I'm acting as a team leader, and I have my gunner. We didn't have an ammo man, and then the other team has a team leader and a gunner, and then I doubled as the squad leader for that squad.
Right on.
So,
right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right in those early days, I don't think. I mean, I'll ask your opinion on it. For me, it just seemed like some guys went there and got a taste of it and were like done. They lost people or whatever, and they got out. And then you'd have those salts stick along, but most of the time it seemed like that was it. And then they were backfilling with either NCOs or fresh crop of junior Marines, and it always seemed that way. Even when I was in 3-2, like 05, 06 time frame seemed the same way. You had Lance Corporal squad leaders filling sergeant billets. So I think that probably will always be a thing when we have hard combat, don't you?
Oh yeah. And I can speak for like the invasion. We had all our guys that were about to get out before we got mobilized for OIF1. they all got stop lost. So like for people that don't know what that is, it's like your contract's coming up and it's going to be done. But when you sign that contract, like you sign IRR time, right? You do 4 years on active duty and then you do 4 additional years in individual ready reserve. And if the Marine Corps says, no, motherfucker, we're about to go to war, we need you, they're like, you're going to stay on active duty until this deployment's done. And that's what happened to a lot of our guys for OIF 1. And that's probably why we were TO, because we got, you know, the boot drop that I was part of, big boot drop. And then we had our senior Marines, and then like all the dudes that were about to get out got stop lost. And then as soon as we got back, hey, stop loss is done. They can get out now.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And like, okay, I understand the need for it, but you want to talk about some bitter sallies, man, when people are planning to get out and then you make them stay in. Those are not the guys you want to be boots falling under, which is what you ended up doing. Pretty wild there. Okay, so you're running dual hats here from the beginning, squad leader / whatever you need to do to keep your squad's guns up, and you're doing the MUSOC workup. Is there any other notable, really impactful things that come through that workup or big learning points for you personally or for the squad in general?
Oh, yeah. So one thing I forgot to mention is we got our own boot drop, right? So it's like we weren't the boots anymore. Like we are now combat veterans. We've done a deployment. So we get back. So a lot of the guys that were senior Marines to us are, you know, getting out. You know, some guys stayed around, but a lot of them left. So it's like we're the experienced guys now. So now we're getting brand new Marines straight for the School of Infantry. And you're almost seeing a mirror of yourself from, you know, a year prior.
Yep.
So you know, all of us, I think my generation of, you know, 1-4 at that time, having been a junior Marine going through the initial invasion, like we saw the good leaders and we saw the shitty fucking leaders, right? So me, like when I got my boot, my junior Marine, like one thing I didn't want to be is I didn't want to be my senior Marine. Like the way I was treated, because we absolutely got fucking hazed. And I think we talked about that on episode 1.
Sure.
And that developed, you know, significant resentment, and that's not something I wanted to do to my guy. Like this is a guy I'm going into combat with. Like you can be firm, but you need to be fair, right? The boot fuck games need to stop when you get in country. Yeah, and that didn't stop for us, and for a lot of guys, and that's one thing I did not want to go forward with going into combat. So like I did not treat my junior Marine like that, the way I got treated during OIF 1.
So what was your approach then as that Lance Corporal, that senior Marine, squad leader now, combat veteran who didn't want to treat his Marines the way he was treated? What was your approach? How did you approach the leadership role?
Well, just like I said, not doing the fuck games, right? Like we were going to war, like there's no time for that. So it was more of like a mentoring, teaching this young Marine, like, hey, what I learned over there, you know, the lessons learned, right? Because there was a lot of them. We went from, I don't think I told this story on the last episode, but like when we stepped off on the invasion, the very first night, like I remember I was on the gun and my 2 guys that were in my machine gun team were going to sleep, and they laid down and they took their boots off, right? And I think they got down in their like freaking skivvies, like their PT shorts or, you know, silkies, whatever they're wearing. Well, the XO comes by and he sees boots like staged outside of a bivy sack. That's not an uncommon thing to see in the field back in the rear, right? But here we are in the middle of an invasion first night. Dude, the fucking XO starts grabbing their bivy sacks and shaking them, and he's like, we're getting attacked, get up, we're under fire. And these guys are like in their fucking fart sacks, you know, like trying to get out and like scrambling. They come, you know, jumping on next to me on the gun, and, you know, they're still in their freaking, you know, skivvies. And when guys got his Kevlar on, not latched, you know, they just grab their shit. And, you know, they're like, what the fuck? You know, they're all freaking out, like, what the fuck's going on? And then the comm settles, and they're like, what's going on? And the XO's like, why the fuck are you in your fucking skivvies in the middle of a fucking war? You know what I mean? But, hey, as a young Marine, like, nobody knew. Right, you're junior. Yeah. And I hate to say this, but like boot camp almost makes you retarded, in a way, right? Some things that you would think are common sense, that, you know, only a year later is like, that's common sense. How do you not comprehend this?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, young Marines straight out of like recruit training, SOI, will make those mistakes. And
it's like that
happens.
robot, that routine muscle memory
Yes.
robotism, of junior Marines for sure.
Yeah,
For sure. And then through the workup, what are the? And I'll actually want to press on this a little bit. So you were brought up under a certain style of leadership. You did have good leadership, but you had bad leadership as well.
yes.
Then you got your Marines. And a lot of times what seemed to happen, at least in the past, it seemed to be like people would treat their junior Marines the way that they were treated as junior Marines. So my question is, and it's going to sound redundant from the last one, but what was your approach then? Was it, you said more mentor-mentee style approach? Is that more of a family style approach? Or would that more be like you're disconnected from them, but when it comes time to teach and learn, you're with them?
Yeah, I mean, just more of a, when I say like mentor approach, I'm not saying like sit down and like, hey man, how you doing today? Not that kind of approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, here I am, a Lance Corporal. I got a PFC. He'll be a Lance Corporal, within a couple months.
Sure.
But he doesn't know shit. So it was more like a show him how to do things, show him what right looks like, kind of approach, as opposed to like, hey, fucking boot, fucking do this shit, go fucking run over that. Oh, you didn't fucking do this, so just playing the fuck games. And like me going through OIF 1, like my squad leader was a piece of shit, 100%. But our machine gun section leader and some of the other squad leaders were squared away, right? So like, just like you were talking about, like I saw the good squad leaders, I saw our machine gun section leader, and I saw our platoon sergeant was fucking shit hot too. And they were just guys that 100% like just gain my respect, right? Because they didn't treat us like shit, even though we were boot junior Marines.
Sure.
They mentored us. Like I remember one time our one of our squad leaders, he like brought us all in, and like he had us watch this like VHS tape over like machine gun. It was like a History Channel special over like machine guns in history, right?
Yeah.
And it was just that type of stuff. Instead of like being fucking playing stupid boot games. No, he brought all of us in, and like we had a little informal PME over like machine gun history, going from like World War I up to modern times.
Hell yeah.
So,
and that I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like saw that, 100% respected the hell out of that guy. And here this guy's a sergeant, right? And he's not treating us like like we're nothing.
Sure. So.
And
that's the way, man. I've seen it both ways in my career too. And for all you junior warriors out there and junior leaders out there, pick up the good from the good and then leave the bad to the bad, and emulate that person that's the top of what you look up to. You should look up to something. You should aspire to be somebody in your chain of command, whoever that is. And I wouldn't even be afraid to ask them for mentorship. If you never ask, you never get an answer. But if you find a shit hot sergeant, you find a shit hot platoon sergeant, lieutenant even, hey, ask them, can you please mentor me to be more along the lines of what you're looking for, what the Marine Corps is looking for? So that'll work. But yeah, that's it's just a weird position to be in, because it's not necessarily that you're leading your peers, but it kind of is. And leading peers is a difficult thing no matter where you're at or what business you're in. But in this case, you had the experience, and you had the experience on the ground, which is beautiful. So, how did these Marines respond to it? The Marines that you had in your squad, they pick up things pretty quickly.
Yeah. I had a good. His name's Eric Graham. He was my gunner for OIF 2. Good dude. It was a little surprising though, because I think we talked about this on episode 1. There's like the stereotypes with the different MOS. A couple of the boots we got were not the stereotypical like big jack, freaking beefy machine gunners, right? So my junior Marine was a smaller stature, more wiry guy, and And so he didn't meet that mold, but he was still a hard charger, man. He was eager to learn, and again, I treated him like a human being, not a freaking a piece of gear.
Hell yeah.
And he put out for me, and that's what I asked for. So it's like when I'm talking about like mentoring, I'm not talking about like coddling a guy. Like,
sure.
I've chewed a lot of ass over 22 years as a United States Marine.
Sure.
Like sometimes you gotta fucking lay into dudes. I'm just saying, like, treat a person as a freaking infantry freaking warrior, not as a boot piece of shit.
Yep.
Because that's the guy who you're counting on. If your ass takes a round in the middle of an alley, it might be him that's either going to run out there, grab you to drag you out, or sit there and watch you fucking bleed out because he's like, fuck that guy.
Yep, that's right. So. That's right. All right, so let's push on from that. Get this MOB, get this workup. And now, did you guys know where you were going during the workup, or did you find out later?
I don't remember if we knew exactly. I'm reading a book, Battle for the City of Dead. It's about the Battle of Najaf, and almost finished with it. And in there, it talks about our initial mission. Because we chopped to the MEU. We were part of the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit. Our mission was to initially go into Najaf and help train the Iraqi National Guard that was in that area. The Mahdi army, led by Muqtada Al-Sadr, who we'll talk about a little bit later. He was starting to cause problems over there, and our job was to initially, as the battalion, go in there and train the National Guard to help deal with that problem.
Sure.
So that, my understanding, reading this book, that's what our initial mission is, and it makes sense now I think about it going back. But we got on ship late May 2004, and I remember we did a stop in Hawaii. We did some training in Hawaii for a few weeks, which was fun, and they even gave us libo for a couple nights.
Oh yeah,
which was a blast. And a funny story about that. We're out there training for a week or two, and just really tough training. Right, we're going back to war. Right.
Yeah.
And then we're supposed to get libo. Well, the night before we were supposed to go on libo the next day, I get really sick. Like, my throat is like sore,
Oh, no.
hacking, phlegm up, and I'm like, dude, this can't happen to me. I want to go on libo. Like, no way, I'm missing out on liberty. So I go to freaking one of my corpsmen. I'm like, Doc. I was like, give me the ass shot. I don't even know what it is. I think it might be penicillin.
Penicillin, yeah.
Yeah, they give you a shot in the ass, right? And it cures everything. That's all I knew. It cured everything. I didn't care what it was. I just knew it cured everything. And the doc's like, man, that's an overkill. And I was like, Doc, I can't miss liberty. He's like, fine, fuck it, I'll do it. Don't tell anybody. So he gives me that ass shot, and I shit you not, the next day I could have ran a freaking 300 PFT. I felt so.
It felt amazing, huh? That's awesome. So
yeah.
You get this liberty now. Is this on your way over?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
yeah, you needed that liberty. That was that last liberty.
Oh yeah, it was going to be like a month plus transit to Kuwait for this, and this was our only libo, essentially our only stop.
Okay.
That we were going to get off the boat. So yeah, I think we got 2 nights in. It might have been Honolulu, or maybe it was one of the other islands, but it was a blast, absolute blast.
Heck yeah. Now, let me interject one more time, if you may. Your section leader that you looked up to from the first one, is he gone? Who's your section leader now? Is somebody you get along with? Yeah,
so they rotated things around, and this is funny. So our section leader for our second deployment, he was a PFC on our first deployment. Not because he came in with us, but he got hemmed up in some shit and got busted down all the way to PFC. Right?
Oh, wow.
Big Jack dude. His name's Andrews. He's freaking awesome. Awesome guy. And so for going back for our second deployment, our old section leader had moved on to another company, weapons company in the battalion. Because they shuffle around staff NCOs and officers sometimes after deployments. So we had lost our section leader. The sergeant, one of the sergeant squad leaders that I looked up to, he moved over to H&S, and then one of the other sergeant squad leaders, I think, got out. So, it left Andrews kind of at the helm, and he picked up Lance Corporal and OIF 1, got it back. So he's second award Lance Corporal. And then when we got back and doing our workup, I think they had a meritorious promotion board, and he won that. So he pinned out Corporal, if I'm remembering correctly. But he became our section leader. So a corporal section leader, and for those of you that don't know, like a section leader, machine gun section leader is supposed to be a staff sergeant. So here's an NCO corporal holding a freaking staff NCO's billing. So, and that was the norm. I mean, that was very common.
Absolutely. And so you and he vibed together. You didn't have bad blood with him. You looked at him as somebody that you would follow.
Oh, he was awesome. He was one of those guys, and dude, he would be the first one to call you motherfucker, right? And but he was one of those guys that would show you the ropes, not treat you like a piece of shit. And then he just encouraged us to fight all the time.
Yeah.
As machine gunners, we would fight each other all the time. Field days, and now in the Marine Corps, this is probably all considered hazing. But
we still grappled when I was in, but maybe not now.
Yeah, I mean, but this would be like during field day.
Oh yeah.
Like, in between cleaning our rooms, because Thursday night was all field day.
Oh yeah.
And we would take turns, man. They'd be like, hey, Downing and fucking Schomer, come out here and fight fucking Conkey and somebody else. And so we would sit there and fight in front of our section leaders.
Love it.
And yeah, it was
that's
great.
warrior culture shit, man. We got to keep doing that.
100%. And as machine gunners, we fought each other, and then when we got tired of fighting each other, we'd go beat up on mortarmen or assaultmen. And then if any of the 11s fucked with any of the weapons platoon guys, like we would collectively as a platoon go fight them.
What's funny is it's I don't think it ever changed. That's the warrior culture. Like,
yeah,
I know that myself and God, it would be the same thing, only in reverse. We would fight each other. I would right face my platoon and march them into like the next platoon beside me, third platoon, and we would go at it. And like if we would run out of shit and there was some weapons guys around, I always hated fighting weapons guys because they were always huge. Yeah. Generally, they were always bigger than us, So, but yeah, man, that's that warrior culture, and I wouldn't consider that hazing. That's keeping shit. That's keeping shit the way it's supposed to be.
I wouldn't either, but if somebody got
now, if
hurt,
somebody goes crazy and gets stupid, you're not supposed to get stupid, but
yeah, because they would ask, like, if somebody got hurt during this, they'd be like, well, what was your squad leader, section leader doing? Like, oh, they were sitting in a chair watching us. Was there a corpsman present? No.
No corpsman.
4M done?
No safety vehicle, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, that's culture. That's not hazing. I mean, people get stupid and they, whatever, but I like it. I always had my guys fight. I always fought. I'd fight with them though. You know what I mean? I wouldn't fight and watch them fight. We would all fight. I remember in 2010 in Marja, after we got like through our initial portion of our clear, my lieutenant, he comes out and he's like, you and you, let's go. 3 minutes in the pit till somebody taps, and like they would go, and then he fought me. We fought each other, and I thought he was really trying to kill me for a good portion of that fight, and it was grappling, so we weren't doing like face strikes or anything, but that's good, man. That's keeping you alive right there and keeping you in the pocket. So definitely love that. Section leader, and what about your small unit leadership as far as your platoon sergeant, your platoon commander style leadership? Are you pretty solid there coming into the second one?
Yeah, pretty solid. We our platoon commander was a holdover, so like I think the guy was a rifle platoon commander during OIF 1.
Okay.
And then he came over to weapons platoon, and then our platoon sergeant was a new staff NCO, real short Filipino guy.
Okay.
So we didn't know too much about him. So he's not somebody like you would look at and think that, oh, this guy's like fucking Audie Murphy or anything. But, he's staff NCO. He came from the drill field, just a hard little Filipino man.
Check.
I don't know how much else to describe him. He would end up becoming a sergeant major and retire. So he's a good guy. He looked after us.
Gotcha. All right, so let's push off of that last libo and kind of walk me through number 2.
Yeah, so it was like I think it was like a 45-day transit. We get to Kuwait. We offload at a dock, which is different than an OIF-1. We took 46s and flew right off the deck.
Yep.
This one we offloaded at a dock, and we were in Kuwait for a little while. Not maybe 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more. But I remember it was so hot that we had to like do reverse training. So we would train at night and sleep during the day.
Mm-hmm.
It was wild.
Super hot.
We did. Yeah, we just did our training because this was July. So I wrote some notes down. It looks like July 6th is when we offloaded at the naval base in Kuwait. So yeah, middle of July in Kuwait, just hot as fuck.
That's bad time.
Doing a reverse schedule, which was good because we got a lot of night training, right? Getting used to MVGs, which was a lot different. Well, there was more MVGs, so that was something I'm not sure if we talked about in the first one. Like MVGs, like there were MVGs, but they're not like they are now.
Right.
Like we didn't all have MVGs during the first deployment.
Right.
Like in my machine gun team, we had one pair of 7 Bravos between the 3 of us.
Yep,
we would share. Whoever was on the gun or on watch would fucking use those 7 Bravos. So
now, did you guys have like 17 Charlies, like night sights for your 240?
Yeah, so we had 17s, but they were always on the gun.
Yep.
We also had some PAS 13s.
Yep.
That would be amongst the squad. So which PAS 13s are like these big. I actually got a fucking set right over here, believe it or not. But they're big. It's just a big, giant freaking weapon sight. And, people look at it now and be like, oh my God, what is that thing? But I tell you, it actually worked pretty good for what it was.
It's white hot and black hot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you guys can see how large this thing is. So, it made lifting up your feed tray on your 240 a pain in the ass.
Yeah, but boy, if somebody tested you at night, they was going to get ripped.
Yeah. And like the insurgents in Iraq, like they did not have this stuff. It isn't like today where, the conflicts around the world, like, everybody's got MVGs, even the insurgents. Back then, it was like, we own the night, man. They did not have those capabilities.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. It's been revolutionized, even with this new drone warfare that you're seeing in Ukraine and Russia and different places, man. We've seen it not first, but by and large in the Armenia and Azerbaijan conflict, I think around 2005, 6, something like that, maybe a little bit later. But then it's just grown and grown and grown. Of course, we always had them. We had unmanned aircraft, and Reapers and different things, Ravens even there at the end, little squad internal support, but they didn't. And now it's like they figured out a way to put mortars on commercial drones and totally fuck people up with them. So that's changed. And most of these drones, I think, have white hot, black hot settings on them. Like a lot of them do anyway. So that's instant. Even if you didn't have NVGs, you have that now, and you take that up to 400 feet and see what you see. So it's definitely changed the battlefield for sure. Even since I got out, it's a different place for sure. But those PAS 13s are awesome. 17 Charlies are awesome. Had 17 Charlies even back all the way when I was in Fast Company, which would have been around this time, 2004-5 time frame. Good sights. I mean, they worked. So heavy, bulky.
I think they're still using 17s.
And yeah. It still doesn't make them any lighter unless they have made them lighter. Those 17s are heavy to put on anything other than a machine gun, which you shouldn't put them on anything other than a machine gun probably. But I know some sergeants that put them on M4s at one time. Pretty stupid. Okay, so are we talking about 140 degree heat in Kuwait? Is that what we're talking about? 120, 130 degrees?
Probably.
I just know it's one of the hottest places I've ever been.
However hot it is that, the Marine Corps decides, hey, it is way too hot for our guys to train during the day.
Yeah, that hot, all the way hot. Hell yeah.
Because I'll tell you, I've been in the Marine Corps for 22 years, and that's the only time that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, it's hot. Kuwait was hot, and probably equal to or maybe just a bit hotter was Bahrain. Bahrain in June, July, not cool. Lot of heat there, a lot of humidity too on that one. Okay, so how long do you stay in Kuwait? Is this like maybe 10 days to 2 weeks to acclimatize and get your guys' in brief kind of style?
Yeah. I can't, for the life of me, I can't remember the exact time frame, but when you think about my notes say July 6th, we landed at the naval base, and then it looks like July 23rd, we made it to Fob Hotel in Duke in Najaf.
Okay, so that sounds right.
Yeah. So that all encompassed, a training period in Kuwait, and then a massive convoy that we took up to Najaf. I think one of the platoons actually took helos in, but we took a massive convoy, which was kind of weird because it's like now we're kind of retracing the same footsteps, during the invasion, except now we're in a 7-ton, actually, a little bit more comfortable, can see outside. And,
sure. Yeah, that changes things for sure. Now, and what are your thoughts moving to Najaf? Are you, because you just came out of that where you took some contact and you knew that this is a real fucking enemy and this is a real war. Are you taking much resistance on your way in? Are you taking no resistance on the way in?
So to put this in context, when we left Al-Hilla in 2003, at the end of that first deployment, like combat operations were going on. We were conducting combat operations, but like the insurgency really hadn't gotten started yet. Like I couldn't have told you what an IED was coming home from my first deployment. Didn't know. Had no idea what the hell that was.
Check.
Didn't learn what that was until we were on the way to Iraq for a second deployment, and we got like, a brief on what the enemy TTPs are.
Okay. Okay.
So like, again, we never heard of IEDs back then. Everything, the insurgency didn't really hadn't started up yet. It was the fall of the Iraqi army, and the fighting that was going on at the end of that was just small pockets of resistance. Nothing was really organized yet. Coming back in OIF2 was a different story. Like before we went over there, I think the U.S. contractors were killed in Fallujah and hung from the bridge.
Yep,
Blackwater guys. I remember seeing that on the news. Yeah, I remember seeing that on the news. So like things were really starting to get hot there. We had an idea what IEDs were, but we hadn't experienced them yet.
Right.
So.
Right. And so what about resistance at all when you start pushing?
We didn't encounter, to my knowledge, any resistance getting to Najaf.
Check.
So we get there, we get to Najaf, we rip with an army unit, and Najaf is the site of probably the second most holiest site in all of Shia Islam. It's got the Ali Aman Shrine. Am I saying that right? Iman Ali Mosque. All right, so it's like this big mosque. It's a gold dome.
Yep.
And right next to it is the largest cemetery in the freaking world. And essentially, it's like all these Shia Muslims want to be buried there because of the significance of that mosque, because one of their head honchos, is laid to rest there, so they want to be as close as possible to him, and that's why the cemetery is so large. So, when we ripped with the army, they told us that this was an exclusion zone to like respect, the Shia Muslims in Najaf. Like we would not go in there. We would respect their religion. It's an easy way to piss, people off is to trample on their religion. So, with that being an exclusion zone, you had this radical Shia cleric called Muqtada Al-Sadr, had his own little freaking militia called the Mahdi militia. It would grow to become be called the Mahdi army. But these were all his like, low income freaking henchmen, young kids that really didn't have any jobs would migrate to him and be his little freaking water carriers essentially. So he's running his mouth. He wants to be the head honcho of, this site, and he wants to climb the ranks, and he's spouting the anti-American stuff and calling us occupiers and all that stuff. Reality is, and I don't give a shit what anybody fucking says about this, reality is we were trying to rebuild Iraq, right? What freaking country in the history of the human fucking race invades a country, demolishes it, and then pours its blood, sweat, tears, and treasure into it, only to say, "All right, you're good. We're out of here. Have a nice day."
It's only
yours.
us. Only
us. So we moved into Najaf. The governor of Najaf at that time was having issues with Muqtada Al-Sadr, doing stuff. He was conducting attacks and stuff on police stations, small scale stuff. I think he had murdered a few of his rivals, and the governor of Najaf was essentially asking for help. So we transitioned from originally supposed to be this training mission, training the Iraqi National Guard, to, hey, now we need to move into Najaf, take over this battle space, and help establish, security in the area to deal with the Mahdi army.
Check.
So we move in. Our company, Bravo Company, moves into Fob Hotel, which was like the major fob in Najaf, and we rip with the army, and our platoon, well, actually all the platoons in the company were starting to rotate, and we took over doing like security at the governor's compound. So the governor had his own building, and right next to it was like an old agricultural building, real tall building, and it had a perimeter and everything else. So we moved in there, hardened it, worked with the Iraqi police, secured that place so that the governorship and like the council members of Najaf could meet in security and conduct their day-to-day operations without the fear of, the Mahdi freaking militia breaking into the place and killing everybody.
Yep.
So that was one of our primary missions as Bravo Company, was doing that governor compound defense. Plus we had a security aspect at Fob Hotel. Plus we were doing, mobile security in Najaf. Weapons Company was doing, mobile patrols with their CAT elements and things like that.
Sure.
So with the exclusion zone set up, Al-Sadr's guys were using the cemetery. They knew it was an exclusion zone.
Yep.
They knew U.S. coalition forces were not going in there. So they essentially turned the cemetery into their safe haven. They had weapons caches there. They stored all their weapons. They were launching raids on Iraqi police stations out of the cemetery. And, they would come out, they'd launch their attacks, and then retreat back to the cemetery, and then U.S. forces couldn't pursue them. Iraqi police didn't have the ass to pursue them because, Iraqi police are sitting there with freaking AKs. The Mahdi militia's got AKs, PKMs, fucking RPGs, mortars. They got the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
So, anyways, that's what's going on. We're doing security. They start mortaring us almost daily.
Like at Fob Hotel?
Fob Hotel and the governor building.
Okay,
governor building more so. And man, big fucking mortars. 82.
Oh yeah.
Like either Russian or Chicom built 82 and 120s even. And I remember one day they blew up our fucking shower that we had at the governor building. And
were you living there when you were on security down there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had there was a big agriculture building that we hardened, and whatever platoon was there at the governor's compound at the time would live in that big building. Check. So
now, any casualties from these mortar strikes?
No, none during that time.
Okay.
So, so sporadic mortaring. We're doing a rip with the Army. Once the rip's done, Army leaves, and now it's our battle space. Now, to put this in context, like the Army had been there for however long, and they had the deals worked out with the Mahdi militia, where it's like, hey, you got your exclusion zones, like you guys can stand there with your weapons. We won't shoot you, you won't shoot us, and they kind of coexisted a little bit without, some serious engagements.
Sure.
Well, our guys roll in, they're all freaking eager to get some, or most of them are veterans of OIF 1. So that
got a little revenge coming.
Shit, yeah, that staring down shit with an RPG-7 sitting on your shoulder from the cemetery, staring at Cat,
not gonna fly there.
50 cal and Mark 19, yeah, that ain't gonna fly at all.
Yeah.
So,
Cat got them weapons to reach out and touch you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and so is that what went down?
Yes. So, we get there. Let's see, July 23rd is what I wrote down when we arrived at Fob Hotel in Fob Duke. August, July 31st is when we completed our RIP with the Army, and then August 3rd, I believe, is when the Battle of Najaf kicked off.
Right on,
So,
right on time.
What friggin' like 3 days?
Hell yeah.
So the first thing I remember is Cat got in a tick. So they got in a firefight with the Mahdi militia. From what I gather, I don't know, Lance Corporal Underground. They're driving down and there's Mahdi militia with their weapons in the cemetery, taunting our guys. And our guys see them like a fucking hostile act, hostile intent, enemy with weapons.
Yep.
And it's on, man. So Cat gets engaged. So now you're stirring up a hornet's nest.
Mm-hmm.
So big firefight ensues. At this time, we would always have a platoon at Fob Hotel on React.
Yep.
So for those that don't know, React is like a reactionary force, right? You have a small force ready, standing by. These guys are, in their camis, their gear's staged, and if something happens anywhere, like if Fob Hotel gets attacked or if our troops get in contact out in town, like we're gonna throw our shit on, we're jumping on the Vixen, rolling. We're half ready to go.
Yep.
So our platoon is on React. So Cat gets in a tick. We throw on our gear, we mount the tracks, and we roll out there. We might even have been in 7 tons at the time. I can't remember. But we roll up, and there's, fucking buildings are on fire. There's smoke pouring out. There's Cat going to town with 240s and 50 cals and Mark 19s. Cat's got a lot of ass.
Oh, yeah.
Bravo Company React shows up. We dismount, and it sounded like a freaking rifle range.
Oh, yeah.
This is the first like small arms engagement of our second deployment for Bravo Company.
Oh yeah, quick
So
too.
We get there, we get online, and dudes are just going to town, man. They are fucking unloaded. And like I said, it sounded like a rifle range, man. Like when you show up, you hear Cat. They're like, controlled bursts.
Yep.
Some Mark 19. When Bravo Company shows up, it's fucking dudes are trying to get some, right?
Oh yeah.
So.
And is this in the cemetery that you're reacting to?
No, this is like in a town.
Okay.
So
Okay.
This is not in the cemetery yet.
Okay.
So we get there, things calm down, Mahdi militia retreats, and we load back up. We go back to Fob Hotel. Cat carries on. So later that night, the Mahdi militia launch a raid against one of the police stations in Najaf. And if I remember correctly, the governor of Najaf was like, fucking my guys need your help. Please come. They can't hold off. So the Iraqi police are trying to hold off this, onslaught from the Mahdi militia. Cat rolls out there. We get stood up. I think once Cat arrives, Mahdi militia scramble like cockroaches to get out of there.
Yep.
They already got a taste. They don't want to.
They learned earlier. Yeah.
So this was like in the middle of the night, right? So we get stood down. So we don't roll out this time. So fast forward, it's the next day. Another attack on the police stations happened, and if I remember correctly, the police station is near like this big traffic circle in Najaf.
Okay.
It's a pivotal area for the city. So that happens again. The Najaf governor's pleading for the Americans, like, please come. My Iraqi police cannot handle these attacks in the Mahdi army. So Cat rolls out there. Cat gets engaged. They're hooking and jabbing, and fucking they get air on station. So a Cobra and a Huey are flying around, and they're taking small on fire. And what happened is one of those rounds pierced the cockpit of the Huey and blinded the pilot.
Oh man!
So when he got hit in the eyes, he kind of lost control of his bird, and they couldn't really recover, and they ended up crashing right there near the traffic circle. So now we got a down bird, right? All you have is Cat out there. So when in hindsight, when you think of the Mahdi militia, fucking hundreds if not thousands of Iraqi insurgent fighters, well, now we got fucking Black Hawk Down, right? That's essentially Black Hawk Down fucking redo.
Yep.
We got a Marine Huey on the deck, and the pilots are not. All they have are some M16s, maybe some M4s or whatever they have, and it's just them, man. So Cat's rushing to get to the crash site. Mahdi militia, they know they just shot down a Huey,
Yeah.
so they're just trying to freaking get there.
Yeah.
So we get the word at Fob Hotel. My platoon, 1st Platoon Bravo Company, was machine gunner attached to them.
Now, are you mounted?
We're in AAVs.
Okay.
We're in
Okay.
traps. So we get the word like, hey, fucking Huey was just shot down. Cat's out there setting up a cordon around the down bird. We need to go reinforce them. So it was just fucking grab your shit and go.
Yeah.
So we grabbed on. We threw our deuce gear on. We grabbed our stuff. What we had staged for react. We jumped on the AAVs and we rolled. Right now, I can't help. Right, I can't stress this enough. Like, we're just a reactionary force. Right, we are not prepared to like go into this major offensive. Right, we're like, hey, plug the hole, until follow-on forces can get there. That's kind of what we are as a react. One
Sure.
rifle platoon. We're not equipped and set up and packed to launch a full-scale offensive. So that's how we roll out there, just a react. We get out there, we set up a cordon around the down bird, and the Mahdi militia is hitting our lines. So I set up a position inside. At first, it was like a little Haji shop. Everything's closed up, and which funny to me is the times I've been engaged in heavy combat, it's like civilians disappear.
Yeah.
And it almost turns into like a ghost town, wild west.
Yep.
Fucking tumbleweeds going across the street. Like, civilians are gone, and it's just essentially us and the enemy at this point. Because like, I don't see any civilians anywhere. It's just us being engaged and us engaging them, essentially at this point. So we set up in at first in this old, like, not old, but Iraqi, like, fucking little stand.
Yeah.
I've got a picture of me in it, and we're sitting there, and the tracks are covering the major avenues of approach. We're covering a major avenue of approach, and it's just sporadic small arms fire, and then this white freaking car is like speeding down towards us, right? So I see it. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at some 11s. Some riflemen are like trying to signal this vehicle to stop. It keeps coming, and this thing is just flying. And so we open up, man. We're fucking lighting this sucker up, dude. And one of my buddies, Brent Humphrey, he's a 0311 team leader.
Shout out.
Our team. He fucking, I tell you this is the craziest shit ever. Because again, he was like trying to signal his car to stop. That car just flies by him and takes a hard right. I watched this dude turn and shoot his M203 from the fucking hip, and scored a direct hit on this car.
Oh, fuck
and
yes.
we're all lighting it up too, right? And this car comes to go to a screeching halt. And so now we're closing with on this fucking car, and the doors open up, and a fucking dude like kind of barrels out, and a big heavy set Iraqi woman comes out, and like they're all still alive. And I'm like, how in the hell did anybody survive this? Now, I'll concede, like, not Mahdi militia.
Yeah.
Not at all. Civilians.
Yeah.
But we did everything in our power to, tell them to stop. They not only ignored our signals and, commands and warnings and everything. Like this, I think this is pretty fucking universal.
Yeah.
They accelerated and tried to run through our checkpoint, essentially, that was set up. So they come out, and it's like, yeah, they're covered in blood, but they're still fucking alive. And they took, I don't know how much 5.56. I don't think my gunner engaged them with his M240.
Probably didn't need to after a 203 went off.
Right. And that was one of the things that was very anticlimactic too, was watching that 40 millimeter like explode on that car. And like, it's not like the movies, guys.
No, they don't flip anything in a fireball.
Yeah. It wasn't something out of a Predator or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, so these two wounded individuals were casevac'd out of there.
You know, some part of me sometimes wonders, because I've seen a lot of that same thing, both in Iraq and Afghanistan, probably more in Iraq than Afghanistan. But part of me wonders, like, are they just fed up? Like, no, I'm not. Because, like, a lot in my experience, they just continued living life as if we weren't fighting street to street in their villages. Right. You know what I mean? They just, yep, that's going on, but I need to go over here and take these cows out, or, you know, whatever. It's very interesting, to say the least, because it was both in Iraq and Afghanistan, both theaters, different people, both of them acted the same way. And maybe that's just because that's, you know, you're in that situation. I don't know. It's very strange. Well, that's a hell of an opening couple of days after your RIP is adjourned, eh?
Yeah, this is, you know, what, 3 days into our, you know, full blown RIP with the Army.
Yeah.
And here we are in this, you know, major firefight. So Huey shot down, cordon set, you know, his car runs, you know, our checkpoint, we unload on it. So at this point, right after this, I'm like, hey, I go to the our platoon commander. I said, hey, sir, can I displace and reset up my gun? I think it'd be better employed off on our western flank, which is another major avenue of approach. Two lane road, had some like trees in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a track over there, and there was a squad of 11s, but there was no like medium machine gun over there. So he's like, yeah, no problem. Fucking go ahead. So my gunner and I displaced. We go down there, and the best position we could find was like they had these huge, thick trees in the middle of this 2-lane freaking road. And again, I've got a picture, and the reason I got pictures of this because again, just like a YF1, I took one of those little winding.
Yep.
And I had enough common sense in me to know like this is something big, you know, that's going on right now, and like if I don't take a picture of what's happening, like, you know, it's not like modern times where dudes are running around with fucking GoPros, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like nobody takes these pictures, like, you know, nobody will know what this shit was like. So like I took a picture of where we were covering.
Mm-hmm.
And what's cool about this picture that I have is like you can see a poster of Al-Sadr's face up on top of one of the buildings.
Oh yeah.
So, but we're covering this road, we're orienting down it, and you know, there's just sporadic firing going on all around us. Again, we set up a 360 cordon around this down Huey.
Yep.
So the Mahdi militia is continuously trying to, you know, pierce our cordon to get to the bird. Again, think Black Hawk Down. That's essentially what's going on. So we're there. We're holding our perimeter so that they can get this bird on a wrecker and get it back to Fob Hotel. I remember watching a fire.
What about the pilots? Are they still alive or?
Yes. So the one pilot, obviously, he lost his eye, but all the other pilots were extracted.
Now, did he take like glass shrapnel to the eye, or did he take a round?
It was, I don't know.
Okay.
I know a round hit. I don't know if fragments, like I don't know if the round fragmented when it hit the windshield and then went into his eye.
I got you.
But there's a story there. Like Cat, I'm the only reason I'm not like going in depth about it is because it's not my story. It's, you know, weapons company's story.
Oh, please. Yeah, please tell me.
The Cat unit that rescued those pilots, like the pilots made their way into, I think it was like a hospital they just happened to crash by.
Okay.
And freaking Cat rolled over there, set up a perimeter around the down bird, you know, and the Mahdi militia is trying to get to him. So there's a gunfight going on.
Yeah.
A couple of the Marines in Cat commandeered an Iraqi ambulance, loaded the pilots up in the ambulance, and drove that shit back to fucking Fob Hotel.
Hell yeah.
So,
yeah. That's good work right there, dude.
Oh, dude. So,
and I've heard of stories like that before in different interviews where guys just had to figure it out. They just had to make something work, or take a pickup truck or an ambulance in this case, which is even better, I think. But yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And now, did the fighting intensify as time went on? I would assume, yeah.
Yeah. So going back to our position, so I'm watching these 0311s. They're pushing. The cemetery is essentially off to our right. There's a big wall, and the other side is like where the cemetery start. Again, this cemetery is massive. Like
Okay.
you can't. It's hard to like paint just how big with it is unless you go to like Google Earth and type in Najaf, and you will see just how large the cemetery is. Um, but some 11s punch into a building, and they're trying to find better positions and stuff. And I remember they find an Iraqi or an insurgent fucking machine gun on a tripod, and to my knowledge, it was a spade gripped SG-43,
Huh.
and it was on a tripod, and they throw this sucker over this big wall after they like cleared this building and got the gun out of it. They threw it over the wall, and the other side of the wall just happened to be a corpsman.
Oh no.
And they didn't know. So this fucking giant crew served machine gun goes over the wall and falls like 6 feet and smacks this corpsman right in the side, puts him right on his ass. It was the funniest thing. So I had to tell the story because it leads into something else.
Okay.
So yeah, they run over there, they get that corpsman, and they're like, "Hey, you okay?" And he's all right, even though he got hit by a fucking crew served machine gun. They bring this sucker back to the AEV. Now, again, we rolled out there as a react force, right? There's only 2 of us in my particular machine gun team. We had 700 rounds for our 240. 700 rounds. That's not much.
Yeah.
In hindsight, for an M240.
Yeah.
Plus, we'd been engaging multiple targets, throughout this time period. So I saw this gun, and I saw that it had about a belt of about 200 to 300 rounds of 7.62 by 54R linked ammunition for that gun, right? So I saw it, and I was like, if I can commandeer this Haji machine gun, I can get this sucker up in the fight, and that's fucking 200-300 more rounds of ammunition we have, because we don't know how long we're gonna have to hold this position.
Yeah.
I don't know, and we're outnumbered. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of Mahdi militia out there, trying to encircle us. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I go over to our Lieutenant Lewis, and it's like, "Hey, sir, can I try to employ that machine gun?" I was like, "Because we only have 700 rounds left for our 240." And he goes, "Well, you think you can use it?" And I'll say, "I'm a machine gunner, sir. I can figure it out." So he's like, "All right, devil, go ahead." So I fucking get this Haji machine gun, right? And I take it over, and I try to set it up. Now, when they threw that sucker over the wall and it hit the corpsman, it like spun the gun around, and kind of, it's hard to explain, but then, like, their tripods, T&Es, and all that stuff aren't like ours.
Yeah.
It's way different. And when I was trying to get this thing up, I could only mount this. So, like, picture the 2 back legs and the foreleg. I could only get the gun to traverse sideways.
Okay.
So it would be mounted sideways, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, fuck, I really don't, like, it's not really a stable firing position. That's not how the gun's supposed to be employed. I was like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna try this. So I like try to set the gun up sideways, and I'm looking at it. The thing has a string attached to its like bolt. Like they had rigged it up so that, like, that was your cocking lever, was this freaking string.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
So I'm looking at it, and then all of a sudden I realized, like, there's no sights on this thing. It's got no way aiming. It would have just been like,
walk them on.
Yeah, walk them on from the impacts. Like, I don't even know if there's like tracers. Like, this is linked, Russian 7.62 by 54R ammunition. Like, I don't fucking know if every 5th round's a tracer or not.
Right.
Plus, there's a string attached to the cocking level, handle. It's mounted sideways. It's a machine gun I've never seen or fired before in my life. I'm like, you know what? Everything in the book of God is telling me, don't fuck with this gun. It's probably gonna blow up on you.
Fuck it, full send, dude.
Yeah, dude. So what's funny is, like, knowing what I know now, I think I could have got that gun up and back into service, but I was like, this is too much. Like, much as prideful as I am as a machine gunner, like, I ain't fucking with this shit. So I just took it. I put it back in the track.
I gotcha.
So, yeah. So we go back there, and we're there in that position, dealing with different stuff throughout the day. At one point, there was a guy walking down the road towards us, and I yelled out to the platoon commander. I'm like, "Hey, sir, I got a freaking Iraqi walking towards us. I can't tell if he's armed. He's definitely holding something in his hands, and it was like, shiny, but I couldn't tell. It's too small. And he was like probably 300 or 400 meters down the street. And so Lieutenant comes over, Terp comes over, and this guy just keeps walking. So we fired a couple like warning shots, and again, the guy just keeps walking towards us.
Yep.
And we're like, what the hell's going on? So like my gunner is trained in on him. I'm looking at him through my freaking, iron sights on my M16A4 service rifle. And Lieutenant's like got the Terp trying to yell to this guy, and the guy just keeps walking. And they're telling him to stop, right? Just keeps coming. Well, he gets to about maybe 50 meters out in front of us. And the Terp's yelling to him. The guy keeps walking. Well, some other 11 off on our, flank, who's not privy to what's going on, must have saw this guy in his like peripheral or something. So he starts shooting at this guy. Well, as soon as that guy starts shooting at him, that Iraqi just takes off running across the street, and the freaking 50 cal on the AAV opens up, and I'm telling you, 50 meters in front of me, I watched a dude get hit with a 50 cal.
Slap.
Dude, nasty.
Go away.
Fucking nasty. So this dude ends up falling on some like rubble from the wall, and I'll get back to him later, but he's dead, right? So again, we're just kind of holding the line, right? Sporadic gunfire going on. We're there all day, and it's getting towards the evening, and they come over. Toucan comes over and says, "Hey, we're picking up. We're moving. They got the Huey out. Huey's gone. We're gonna pick up, and we're moving to a new location." So I can't remember if we moved over to this other area on foot or if we loaded back up in the AAVs or not, but we relocated to a point where we're up against this pretty big wall. And so everybody is now essentially online. And guys are fucking smoked, man. It's August in Iraq, and it's hot as fuck. We've been out there all day. Some dudes are like starting to run out of water.
Oh yeah.
Like you rolled out there with what you had, right? For me, it was 2 canteens and a Camelback. I know for a fact, one of my guys in my machine gun squad only had 1 canteen. My gunner had, I think, 2 canteens. So it's like, that's what you had, man. That's what you had to go
ration
in the middle
it
of
out.
August.
Yeah.
Fight all day. So we get online, and one of the 11 squad leaders comes over to me, and he kind of briefs me, because at this point it's like I've got one machine gun team that's with the tracks, like kind of holding security.
Sure.
And then my machine gun team is attached to one of the rifle squads. So that rifle squad leader comes over, and he's like, "Hey, he's like, we're gonna get online. We're gonna push into the cemetery." And I'm like, I looked over and I looking at the cemetery, and like the only way I can describe this to guys is like, think the worst fucking possible mountain environment that you can imagine, and that's the cemetery. It is covered in not traditional tombs like you see at one of our cemeteries. These tombs are like 3D mounds. Each one of them looks like a fighting position essentially, and there's hundreds of them. There's big like small buildings in them, maybe like 10 by 10 fucking tomb type buildings.
Oh yeah.
There's catacombs that go down, and they're like, you go down in these things, and there's like shelves in there where like bodies are put into. And the shit's everywhere. So I'm looking at this, and they're like, "Yeah, we're getting online. We're gonna push in the cemetery." I'm like, "You gotta be fucking kidding me!" Like, we had been fighting all day, right? No resupply, no water resupply. We were literally out there with what we rolled out. The AVs, like, yeah, there might have been some fucking bottles of water on those, and that shit got distributed, and that was it. That's all we had. So all the ammo that we had, that we sipped off with, and all the water we sipped off with, like, that's what we had.
Yeah.
So now it's getting towards the evening. The sun's kind of starting to set a little bit.
Sure.
And they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna get online. We're gonna start pushing into the cemetery." Had no idea like where an LOA was or anything. It's just like, we're gonna get online and push in. So I was like, "All right, fucking Roger that." So we stepped off, man. We started moving, and it's just sporadic firing. So at this point, it's us, our platoon, 1st Platoon Bravo Company, and you had Charlie Company, and then Alpha Company had arrived at this point. And there was 81 millimeter mortars. They were out there as kind of acting as a provisional rifle squad.
Sure.
And then you
well, that's a lot of ass then.
Oh yeah. So what happened was, while this was all going on, this is not, privy to freaking Lance Corporal Downing at the time.
Sure.
While this is all going on, while we're holding the perimeter, fucking battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Mayer, is getting on the horn and calling in his fucking banners, man. Alpha was coming down. Charlie was rolling out. The rest of weapons is coming down. Like, the whole battalion is coming to bear. All the elements of our freaking Marine Expeditionary Force, the tanks that are attached are rolling out there. We constantly were having, sorties flown by, Marine Air, the Cobras, which is funny because I ended up meeting one of the Cobra pilots that was flying CAS for us that day, and he's a good buddy of mine now. But those guys, fucking hats off to them, man. They would fly their fucking CAS missions. They'd fly back to, I believe, Duke, land, do like a hot refill, and then fucking take back off, come back, keep flying. So they never left us, man. As long as they had the capability, they were there.
Yeah, there's something to be said about pilots in a section where a bird goes down. They become different animals.
Oh, yeah.
Completely. It happened to us, too. Yep.
And I remember when, kind of rewinding back when I was on that road, at one point I looked over my shoulder and there was a fucking Cobra just off the ground. Man, he couldn't be any lower without like clipping the tops of palm trees. And he's shooting rockets, man, and those things went right over my head.
Oh, yeah.
He flew over. And I mean, I'm like, I remember that like it was fucking yesterday. Yeah. I know that was my buddy Dave blasting game. There's no question in my mind. I was like, that crazy motherfucker had to be flying that snake, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So anyways, yeah, so we get the word. We're going to push in by this point, like all the elements of, 1-4 there, with the exception of the rest of our Bravo Company, because they had the mission of, protecting the governor building as well as, any elements that were left back at Fob Hotel.
Right.
But the vast majority of the company was at the governor building because that was our primary mission. We were just happened to be the ones on react at Fob Hotel. So it's like our one platoon is like the only Bravo Company representation in this first initial day. So we get the word, man. Now we get the whole battalion. We're pushing through. So
now are you seeing enemies as they're shooting at you guys?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but it's not like it would be like a pop-up. Right?
Yeah.
Or you would see a dude run by, in between tombstones quickly. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It wasn't your standard. It wasn't like the rifle range, man. Somebody pops up and you get.
No, check. Yep. And that's why I asked, because a lot of times, even especially if you ask junior Marines, they'll tell you all about the fight and they cannot remember how many people they actually saw and doped in on.
Right.
You know what I mean? In a lot of different fights. So, all right, so cool. You got guys dashing in and out, and are you guys actually just sweeping it like you're fire and moving or buddy rushing?
So
what do you got going on?
We get online and it was essentially, from what I remember, it was essentially a movement to contact. Because once we started
trolling
moving,
straight at them.
Yep, we're moving, and you're trying to stay aligned with guys to your left and right. And I remember stepping off into the cemetery, and we're getting in there, and I'm watching guys throw M67 fragmentation grenades into tombs. Right. Well, that lasted a whole 30 seconds because there's
so many
guys realized real quick that there were so many tombs you couldn't possibly do that.
Yeah.
Like you'd run out of grenades real quick. So. Yeah. They did it a couple times, and then it was after that. I was like, dude, there's no way we can clear all this shit. We're pushing forward, and hopefully the enemy pops out. So with that being said, obviously there's for sure going to be enemy in tombs that we're pushing past.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I remember being online, and all I could think about was like, fucking, I just pictures like some freaking insurgent sniper reticle on me, because on the outskirts of the cemetery were large buildings.
Yeah.
And if snipers were in those buildings, and they were, they would have clear shots at us at times. So that was, plus I'm walking next to, my gunner.
Sure.
We're definitely great targets of opportunity. So we're starting to push, and like I'm looking at the fucking cemetery and like how it's situated, and it is just so confined. We're climbing over tombs. It's hard to stay on line with the guy on left to your right because of like how everything is. It's so confined and tombs everywhere, dude. I was like, just at a instinct of survival, I mounted my bayonet. I was like, at any point, one of these insurgents can pop out from around a tomb or underneath one of these like fucking catacombs and be right in front of me. And like, I'm not gonna have time. I'm probably gonna instinctively thrust. So like, I mounted my bayonet as we started to push forward. So we just continued to push. Again, fucking firing going on all over the place. We got 3 rifle or Charlie, Alpha, our platoon, 81s. We're all pushing forward. You got supporting fires from like the AAVs. And at some point, we reached an LOA and we stopped. And then we held firm for a little bit, and then we started to pull back. And it was getting dark to the point where like it was getting hard to see.
Yeah. That's what my next question was going to be. This started during daylight, and it's now running into night, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It started. Our push into the cemetery started at dusk, right? Like the sun was going down, or sunset. The sun was going down, and we were running out of light, obviously, at that point. And the clock was ticking, and it got to the point where it was like you're starting to not be able to see shit, and it's getting harder to see. So somebody somewhere made the call, like, hey, we need to pull back and consolidate. So we started to pull back. We halted our advance. We pulled back, and then I remember we started setting in the defense online in the cemetery. So we're still in the cemetery. So like, fucking,
it's gonna be a fun night.
Tombs of shit are everywhere. There's still sporadic firing, and now we're like setting in the defense. So it's like you're not digging, right? Nobody's got e-tools,
right?
Like we stepped off as a react force, so you're like finding freaking tombs and headstones as your cover,
sure,
and trying to get accountability, make sure we got everybody, because dude's fucking it's hard to see. You lost visual contact. We had 2 guys fucking get separated, and I think they ended up making their way back to the track in the rifle platoon. So I mean, I can't stress enough
chaos.
Like how chaotic it was.
Now, so, in that initial clear before you guys consolidated, you have a general number of enemies that were killed?
I couldn't tell you.
I mean, ballpark, 100, 50, 25?
Well, off of Wikipedia, it says that 360 plus Mahdi militia were killed during the whole battle. So
yeah, that's a pretty good number.
I mean, I don't know how many were lost during that initial day of fighting, but probably a significant amount, because I mean they were essentially in the attack at that point, right?
And like, you guys were just kind of setting in on them.
Yeah. We had been reacting to them, fending them off while the Huey was getting extracted. And then towards the end of the day, that's when we transitioned. Once the rest of 1-4 got there, that's when we transitioned to taking a fight to them in their safe haven.
Check.
So we pull back. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so now you're set in, you pull back, you consolidate, you guys are kind of figuring out the catacombs and the headstones and sectors of fire and such, getting your accountability up, and then are you staying there for the evening?
So we pull back, we're getting consolidated, guys are getting accountability of people and stuff, guys are getting like ace reports and stuff like that. And in the process of all this, mortars start dropping on our position.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching them land in front of us, and I'm watching them land behind us. And I'm like, holy fuck, they're bracketing us.
Yeah.
And sure as shit, I hear a mortar impact, and you hear the dreaded words, fucking corpsman up. So fucking everybody's panicking and frenzies, because those fucking there's 61 81 millimeter mortars, or 82. I think they use 82.
82s, yeah.
We're landing all around us, and these are big fucking impacts, right?
Yeah.
So you hear corpsman up, and you just hear a bunch of like chaos and rumbling. Guys are screaming and stuff, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? At this point, the sun is going down. Now I'm like looking through my 7 Bravos, and you just hear a bunch of chaos. Well, I get word that our freaking platoon commander has been hit by a mortar.
Oh man!
And he's completely blinded by the mortar, and he's getting the medevac. So we lose our platoon commander. Platoon sergeant steps up, typical Marine Corps fashion, man. Fucking chain of command. Platoon commander's out of the fight. Platoon sergeant steps right up in that role. He now assumes, tactical responsibility of the platoon. So Staff Sergeant Willis is his name.
Shout out.
So they start passing a word like, hey, we're going to sit in the defense for the night. And then when first light comes in the morning, we're going to start pushing again. So now we kind of got a grasp of what's going on. So like hard fought all fucking day. We've been fighting. Now we're in the defense and we got to get through the night. And then at first light, we're going to start pushing forward again. So, trying to figure everything out, make sure everybody's good. And
like, did you have to reallocate ammo and such since you were low on your guns?
Redistributing ammunition.
Yeah.
We couldn't get resupplied because now we're in the cemetery.
Yeah.
Like we are away from our AAVs. We are away from any type of resupply. Like it's just what you have on your person. So, dudes redistributing the magazines, redistributing ammo as needed. Water is getting scarce now. Because again, we're fucking a whole day's worth of fighting in this. The mortars kind of cease, and all you can hear is, the prayer music playing from the major mosque.
Yep.
And to be in a Shia Muslim cemetery in the defense with, it's prayer music going, and like you hear them out there, like talking and moving. Like I thought for sure, man, dude, we ain't gonna make it through the night. We're gonna get like fucking Chinese style Korean War human wave attacks coming at us, or they're going to sneak up into our perimeter because of everything that's going on, the catacombs and everything else. Like,
sure,
we're going to be in for one hell of a fight tonight. So like that mindset, everybody's just on edge.
Oh yeah.
You want to talk about vigilant Marines? Like I guarantee you, nobody was sleeping at that time.
Yeah. Amped.
Yeah. So about an hour or so after things start calming down, you start hearing this like buzz up in the sky, and you really can't see it. But if you looked up with your 7 Bravos, you saw like a little light up there, like an IR light. Like, what the fuck is that? So I'm looking at the thing, and then all of a sudden I just see this, what looks like an IR beam from a PEC coming from the sky, out of the sky, dude, like God, onto the ground in front of us, several hundred yards in front of us. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Because I'd never seen it before. All of a sudden, dude, it was an AC-130 gunship.
Yep, marking.
Those dudes started giving the Mahdi army some love, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was awesome. It was an amazing fireworks show. So it's like here we are in the defense in this, cemetery, prayer music going on. You hear the enemy out there, and now this AC-130 gunship's on station, and it's just fucking them up, man.
Sending it.
You can't hear them, but you can see them, and it's just,
oh yeah.
And it's, their optics on those birds are just phenomenal, right?
Oh yeah.
And so they're just flying circles up there, man, just laying hate and discontent on the enemy.
Yeah, that's a solid feeling.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic. It was the most relieving thing I think I felt that whole entire battle up to that point.
Yeah, that's something else when you got firepower like that coming down, especially against the enemy that maybe doesn't even know it exists. And there's a serious thing that happens. Excuse me. There's a serious psychological thing that happens when the enemy sees something that they don't understand. It can shut a battlefield down. Maybe not forever, but definitely for a period of time until they collect their thoughts and have their talks with their elders to figure out what the fuck just happened. Like I know that they understood helicopters when I was there. They didn't understand like long range ordnance. They didn't understand Excalibur. They didn't understand HIMARS rockets just appearing and shit goes away. Which I don't know that I would understand it either, like if that happened. But yeah, that's AC-130 sending all of it.
I mean, I can't imagine being a young 18-year-old like radical Shia Islamic fucking fighter and just having no concept of like what night vision is and why it is that just things are just exploding around us.
Yep. No matter where we go, they can see us somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all you hear is like a faint buzz up in the air.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man. Love it.
Yeah. So.
Wow. So are you guys just going nuts in the defense as this is happening, or is everybody staying pretty?
Everybody's still on edge, man. Even with the arts, the AC-130 gunship going off, just because it's like, dude, everywhere around you is just dead space, defilade, tombs.
Now, how close did this AC-130 put ordnance to y'all?
Probably few hundred meters.
Okay. So they must have spot these guys from the air that pulling back in front of you as you guys were set into the defense and give them a little love back there.
But I mean, the cemetery is so vast, and our lines were stretched so because you had, like I said, almost 3 rifle companies online.
That's a big ass cemetery.
Yeah. So I mean, it might have felt like 300 meters, but maybe it was a lot further than that.
Check.
Plus, you're on edge.
But I mean, are you seeing impacts and lighting up the sky?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And I'm watching the point of origin, right? I'm watching the IR beam come from the AC-130 onto the ground. So
yeah. Check. Fuck yeah. Well, that's exciting. So how long did the gunship actually work?
I can't recall, man. I'm not sure. I can't remember how long it was on station. I just remember that event.
Check.
Because we got a lot of stuff going in. We're trying to tie in with all the other riflemen.
Sure.
One of our guys. So before we stepped off in the cemetery, one of my peers, who was part of the other team. I mean, he was an experienced guy, but he kind of stepped in as our ammo man. Because if I remember correctly, I think he might have even came from another squad. I can't remember, but his name's Jose Bonilla. He joined in with my team as an ammo man, to fill in as an ammo man.
Gotcha.
For this. So he was with us. Well, he, like in the movie Black Hawk Down, that one machine gunner who like can't hear.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? That was him. Like he couldn't hear because of all the firing.
Oh yeah.
He was just like his eardrums were blown out. So we're trying to like tell him what's going on, and we're trying to whisper, right? We're in a fucking cemetery with the enemy all around us. Like, hey, Bonehead, this way. Huh? What? We're like, shut the fuck up. Keep your mouth.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what happened to him, man. He fucking, his like eardrums were blown out. He couldn't hear it. It was that guy from that movie, on 100%.
Oh yeah, they got it right, and I've seen it, and it's happened. I was that guy. I mean, I got my eardrums blown out. Well, I don't know about blown out. They were not in good shape. And it's like that. You can't hear anything except for that loud tinnitus. But or like if you're close to, a lot of people discount being in a close quarters battle. If you're in a house, that hurts. Especially when there flashbangs or grenades going off, that hurts. Or if you're just a little bit too far in front of your buddies who's beside you's muzzle brake, and he lets that go, like it's not just that pop from the rifle range of the dude beside you. It's like a painful, searing pain that goes through your eardrum. And
just to throw this out there so people put this in perspective, like all these high speed hearing protection that you see guys nowadays with the fucking rails and the shit on their car, we didn't have any of that shit. No. We didn't wear Ear Pro in combat, man, back then.
I didn't even in 10. In 10, I didn't wear Ear Pro in combat because it's like you need all your senses all the way up. And, I would rather risk taking some hearing damage than not hear my dude that needs me right now. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I think now a lot of the Pelcons and the Quiet Pros and some of the stuff they may have is a bit better, but in the generation era of 3M, we weren't killing it as far as that was concerned. So
it's funny is I laugh every time I see that commercial. It's like, where you issued these 3M earplugs? And I was like, yeah, dude, they're speaking directly to me, and I'm like, I ain't fucking getting involved.
Yeah, dude, 100% not. It's funny. I just had this conversation today with a couple of fellas that I served with, and it's like, one of them really did wear the ear pro, got blown up. His shit's bad. And I'm like, dude, more power to you. Yeah. He's like, yeah, well, what about you? Like, you got serious problems with your brain and everything else in your ears. And I was like, yeah, but I never wore them. So I can't even justify the fact that they gave me flawed ones because I didn't even wear their flawed ones to be able to even feel like I am part of that group. So I definitely kind of give a chuckle when I see it too. Like, well, yeah, I didn't even wear them. This is on me. So, okay, so let's get to morning. So morning light comes and the push continues. And this is kind of why you were prefacing this story with you were not going out there for anything other than a quick react. Yep. But maybe that's the lesson, that gold lining in the story for the young guys is just like Black Hawk Down. I mean, this isn't like we haven't seen this before. We have done this before. Not, in different campaigns we've done this. And Murphy's a motherfucker. So the second that you think you got everything figured out and it's just going to be a quick mission, it's not. And so don't ever treat it like that unless you have to. So,
yeah, the best way I can put it in perspective for people to understand is like imagine the movie Black Hawk Down and the Rangers got inserted on top of where the Black Hawk is, set up a defensive position around it, and then after fighting all day, they get online and start assaulting the city against all the insurgents there.
Yeah, and there's one piece of, like, we're better than everybody else, and we should know that, and we should act like that. However, like, if you're the Mahdi army and you didn't know how big of a bite you were going to chew off, and then you fought all day, and then all of a sudden these bastards get online and just start coming right at you, like, that's where the slogans and the names come from. You know what I mean? And it sucks if you're the one there in the trenches doing it because it's like, oh my God, I'm so smoked. But the psyche that plays on the enemy is just as profound and loud or bass as it was for you sitting there like, oh my God, like, yeah, I know, but what are they gonna think?
Right. Yeah. And now like this was their safe haven, right? Like they were under the assumption that we would not step foot in the cemetery because that's how business was conducted before.
Sure.
But here we are now. We're pushing into their freaking domicile, man. We're closing in on their area. So there had to be an element of like, oh fuck, associated with that.
100%.
Plus, they're seeing a lot more of us now that the rest of the battalion's there. So first light comes, we step off, same manner as how we first stepped off into the cemetery. We're online, we're pushing forward, and now it's light, right? Like it's 100%. The sun's rising, so it's like we're seeing a lot more, right? Because when we first stepped off, sun was going down. Dude, I'm starting to see freaking mortars with like wires strung up to them. Like I had to walk right past this freaking mortar with a wire strung. I was like, oh fuck! I hope somebody doesn't set that sucker off.
Oh yeah.
Now we have there's a main road that kind of runs through. I use the term road loosely because it's not that wide, but it was wide enough for an Abrams to get on it.
Okay.
So an Abrams is pushing up with us now. So we got tank support. So, and I can't tell you guys enough, like as an infantryman, having a tank moving and closing with on the enemy with us, it gives you a feeling of like just greatness.
Like
right?
invincibility.
Like, like it was just a calming reassurance, right? And I'm sure the tanker feels the exact same way because tankers, there's nothing they hate more than operating without infantry dismounts, protecting them.
For sure.
So we're moving in, and dude, this shit, it's a constant movement to contact, except contact was continuous.
Yeah.
So it's just fighting and moving. So it's like you're bounding from one tomb to the next and just continuously engaging targets as we're closing with. I'm fucking just off to my left is like this wall, and all of a sudden I see the wall start collapsing, and an Abrams had backed up into the wall. So it's like the back half of it looked like something in a fucking movie. The back half of an Abrams breaks down the wall, and as the tank backs up, an RPG comes flying right over the top of it. So this tank was trying to back up to avoid getting hit by the RPG. So the wall collapsed, and then he pulls forward, and he's, smoking away with his coax and his main gun. We're closing with, and then we get about, I want to say it was probably 50 meters or so from like the edge of the cemetery to where like normal buildings start, and we hold firm. And now we just kind of establish a defensive line, and we're still taking sporadic fire. There's ever occasionally we're taking fire from behind us. There's no question in my mind that dudes are popping up from behind us, that we're in like the catacombs and stuff.
Sure.
So now we reached our LOA, and we're setting up this defensive line. And at this point, it's just, hey, we're holding firm, and you're just engaging targets as they make themselves
available.
appear.
Yeah.
So,
and is that happening often? Are targets coming into zone often?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I remember. So now that we're at the edge of the cemetery, and I can see like actual like large buildings, I remember watching two dudes like sprint across, and they're about maybe 500 meters out, but I watched them run out of one door and into another one. So I'm shooting at them with my iron sights. Freaking, it's almost like fucking boot camp, like you're setting your rear side elevation.
Yeah.
So, and while this is all going on, there's a building that's really close to us, and this thing has like several stories. And inside of one of those buildings, there was a barrel sticking out of that. And one of our 11s took an AT4, and it was a machine gun. And one of our 11s took an AT4. It freaking shoots an AT4 and gets a direct hit on that building. Yeah. And blows that fucking like machine gun to smithereens, man.
Oh yeah.
Between that and the Abrams was giving that building some love, but there absolutely was a sniper out there, and I remember, I can't remember how long we were in that like LOA, holding pattern or position, but I remember at one point, the element that was off to our right, Alpha Company, they came carrying one of their Marines out that had been taking a failed shot to the neck. So they were. Was
that the only casualty of the small arms casualty?
KIA.
Is that only KIA? You took a couple other casualties.
Up to this point, we've had a lot of guys wounded.
Okay.
Like Lieutenant Lewis took that mortar to the face. We had our one of our radio operators, Brooks. He got freaking a round right through his side, and one of our Marines fucking picked him up. Firemen's carried him and ran his ass all the way back to an AEV.
Oh yeah.
So we had a lot of walking wounded dudes that had been peppered with shrapnel.
Sure.
One guy, I've got a good picture of Lance Corporal Perez. He's got shrapnel fucking all over his face. He's sitting there holding some water bottles. So we had a lot of walking wounded in our platoon. But guys, I mean, first off, it's like to get you out of our position and back to, relative safety, back to where the AEVs are. Dude, you had to move through the cemetery.
Yeah, equally as dangerous.
Right. So, a lot of dudes were like, fuck that. Either, I'm staying and fighting, or it's too dangerous to fucking evac.
Yeah, I got you. And so how's that thing, put a bow on that thing, how's that end?
Well, so it's about midday of day 2. We're in this position, and it's like, now we're like a day and a half into fighting, right? Middle of August, heat's super hot. We have to watch not only the front, but also the rear. And at one point I turned around, I was watching our 6th, and another guy on the opposite side of the tombstone is watching forward. And something told me to check on the Marine behind me. To this day, I'm telling you, man, I'm not like a very religious person, but I absolutely believe in God, absolutely believe in, guardian angels.
Sure.
Just because of all the shit that's happened to me in combat. But something told me to check on the Marine behind me. So I go to look around the tombstone to check on the Marine. And when I peek my head around the tombstone and check on him, 30 yards in front of us is a freaking 2-man RPG team. and they're wearing, I shit you not, they're wearing 6-color desert cami bottoms and brown t-shirts, which was the same uniform the Iraqi National Guard were wearing at that time.
Imagine
but
that.
there were no ING out there at that time. So these guys are either defectors or they, acquired ING uniforms and were wearing them. But I remember the one guy had the RPG-7 on his shoulder, and right behind him is another guy with his hand on the gunner's shoulder, and he's wearing a backpack. It's his A gunner. And they were looking straight. So they were looking at where Alpha Company was, and they weren't looking at me. I was perpendicular to them. So I turned around and I saw him like this, right? So my rifle's down here. So I spun around, and as I'm raising my rifle, the lead gunner looks over and we lock eyes. Again, he's only 30 meters in front of me. And I saw the white of his eyes, and his eyes got this big, man.
Oh yeah, he knew he was done.
Yeah. He turns around and runs smack into his A gunner, and they kind of start falling, and that's about when I start shooting. So I'm unloading a whole fucking magazine at them, and they fall down behind a tombstone. So I didn't have any grenades on me at that time. So I'm screaming, I was like, everybody wake the fuck up, because, I'm sure dudes were exhausted, and probably at this point, your combat high was starting to wear off. Dudes were just exhausted. Dudes were probably falling asleep. The guy on the other side of the tomb of me, 100%, he was asleep. There's no way that he wouldn't have seen those Iraq or the insurgents if he was wide awake, and he wasn't. He fell asleep, and he's lucky that I turned around. Otherwise, if that guy had seen us, he would have shot an RPG at him. Would have killed both of us.
Yep.
So I yelled out, I just dumped the magazine. Everybody's on high alert. People are shooting. I'm like, anybody got any grenades? So one of the fucking guys tosses me a grenade. I throw a first grenade over where they were. It explodes. Somebody throws me another one. So I throw a fucking another grenade over there. And then a third guy sees where I threw my grenade. So he goes to throw his grenade, and it doesn't go off.
Oh, no.
So he either, it was either a dud or he forgot to pull the thumb clip, right?
Yep, thumb clip will get you every time, baby.
That dude forever earned the nickname Thumb Clip.
Oh, I bet he did too. Now, it's just suffice to say that between your full magazine and those first couple of grenades that these guys are smoked up.
Probably.
Okay.
I would assume so. So, because I threw 2 grenades down there, I dumped the magazine where they were at. Everybody else started shooting. Some other guys were throwing, frags into that location as well.
Gotcha.
So, that was kind of like a pivotal moment right there. And then later on, we shifted down. So remember I was telling you about that main road where the tanks were.
Yeah.
They shifted us over to get on the opposite side, to the other side of the road where the tanks were. So we moved on over there. And again, start kind of occupying defensive positions. So at this point, it's kind of like, hey, we're just holding firm, right? We're waiting for reinforcements. I remember getting told that the army was on their way. The army was coming down, and they were gonna relieve us because they were bringing a whole lot more ass.
Gotcha.
So we're in this cemetery, and at this point, it's like none of us had really gotten any sleep. So I told my gunner and my fill-in ammo man, I was like, hey, we're gonna go fucking 1 man up, 2 down, so that we can get some sleep. So I don't remember who went first, but my gunner was actually on the gun, and my ammo man and I were sitting on this small wall, and we're trying to get some shut-eye, right? So I closed our eyes, and I don't know how long we were out, but I got woken up by a concussion, and I opened my eyes, and it's just everything around me is filled with dust. And I knew my buddy Bonehead Bonilla was right next to me, and I thought a fucking mortar had just landed on us. So I'm like reaching out. I'm like, Bonehead, where are you at? And I'm reaching for him, and I grab his body, and I'm like, I didn't think I was getting a reaction, so I thought he was fucking annihilated. I thought he was dead, and I'm like, Bonehead, and he's laughing his ass off.
Oh no!
And I'm like, why the fuck you laughing? What the fuck? He's like, I'm good, man. He goes, it was the tank. And I'm like, huh? And I look over the wall. The Abrams had rolled up to where we were, and we were directly in line with the end of its barrel.
Oh,
it was just
man.
on the other side of the wall. So it had fired its main gun with us right there. and I was out, right, and I thought a fucking mortar had landed on us.
Oh yeah.
I thought Bonehead was dead. I thought I was probably missing my nutsack and probably all my limbs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a big thing that happened. So after that, we kind of rotated out on the gun and stuff, and again, sporadic small arms, sporadic fighting at this time. Guys are just out of water. Like, we were 100% black. I remember going down to the platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Willis, and I'm like, hey, Staff Sergeant, fucking. By this time, I had seen there's a tank, the furthest tank. It's up where we are, and then behind it is a couple cat vehicles, and then there's I saw a high back there. So I went over to Staff Sergeant Willis and I said, hey, Staff Sergeant, I was like, we're out of water. I was like, can we go to the cat, see if they have any water for our guys? Like, my gunner, he was done, man. He's just like, I'm about to pass the fuck out.
Exhausted.
Yeah, the dudes were just on the verge of like heat stroke, man. We're day and a half of fighting and fucking high temps and everything else, no water, just absolutely brutal. So the Staff Sergeant was like, he's like, you can go. I remember him saying that to me, and at first I remember thinking, I'm like, well, fucking, are you gonna send anybody with me?
Yeah.
What do you mean I can go? And that was my first impression. But I started thinking about it. I think about it after I left him. I'm like, you know what? I don't want anybody else to come with me. And the reason being is because I have to sprint down this long road, and surely there's snipers oriented on this road. And like, I don't want anybody else. If anybody's gonna get hit, like, I don't want to drag anybody else into this with me. Because there wasn't a guarantee that there was water in these Vics. So I run past the tank. I go to the first cat vehicle. I run up to the driver's eye. I was like, hey. I was like, do you guys have any water in here? I was like, we are completely fucking black. We got nothing. And I was like, guys are going down, with heat exhaustion. He's like, we don't have any in our vehicle. You check with the high back, 3 vehicles down. So I was like, okay. So I fucking run down to the high back, and I was doing zigzags, right? You guys seen Generation Kill, fucking zigzags?
Oh yeah.
Because when I was a kid, there's a first-person shooter called Delta Force. And I had played that when I was in high school. And you had to run zigzags, and when you were in the open, otherwise you get smoked, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking. Not run straight line. I'm gonna run zigzags because, I don't want to give an easy target to whoever's fucking shooting at me.
Yeah.
So I ran zigzags to the vehicles. So anyways, I make it to the high back, and I get there, and I'm like, hey, you guys have any water? We got fucking nothing. We've been out here for almost 2 days, and they're like, yeah, we got some. And I was like, awesome. And I can't possibly carry enough to, resupply the whole platoon. I was like, is there any way we can drive it up there? He's like, I can take you as far as the furthest cat vehicle. I was like, that's fine. So I jump in the back of the high back, and as soon as I fucking get back up there, man, an RPG gets shot at our truck. And I shit you not, this shit goes right over the top of my head. So I know he was shooting at the truck as soon as I jumped into it. So I get in the truck, and the up guns on the cat start engaging wherever that RPG came from. The high back flies up to the lead cat vehicle, gets out, and then I run back over to our guys. I was like, hey, give me fucking, however many Marines, get over here, get some water. So guys run over there, grab our fucking coup full of water, take it back. And that's where the picture that you'll probably put up during this, Lance Corporal Perez, he's got like 3-4 bottles of water in his hand. That's what that picture's from.
Okay.
Yeah. So we get resupplied with water, and then maybe an hour or two later, they show up with fucking bandoliers of ammunition, and we're finally starting to get resupply. Right?
Yeah.
We're finally starting to get our company gunny shows up, fucking dropping off bandoliers of ammunition. So guys are getting, bandoliers. They're jamming their mags, with fucking stripper clips and stuff, and we're getting topped off. So we're out there for about the rest of the day, and the Army starts arriving, and they tell us like, hey, we're gonna pull out. Army's gonna take over the cemetery.
Okay.
So then we start bounding and bounding out, and the cat and Abrams are starting to cover us. And this is like, day 3. Yeah, day 3. So
A lot longer than you thought you were going to be out there on that react
yeah,
mission, huh?
three fucking days when we stepped off on a quick reactionary force mission, right?
Yep. Goes
So
to show you, man. Never know what to expect. That's for sure.
yeah,
I know that we had. There's times in my career I thought I was going to be gone for a few minutes, and same thing, or like sitting on EOD, on an IED, and maybe EOD couldn't get to you in the early days for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, 20 hours, and you're ass in the wind for that long, thinking you were going on a 2-hour patrol. Happens though, for sure. All right, so moving past the cemetery battle, what do you got?
well, just I gotta to close out this cemetery.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Like, we're bounding back. We get past Cat. We're kind of moving past where friendly lines are, and we pass by that dude that was hit by the 50 cal off the track.
Yeah.
And I'm like, finally, I'm close enough because we're moving in a staggered column down the road that we initially were set up on.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up to him, and I saw as we're moving up, I see dogs eating this dude.
Oh no!
So I was like, "Fuck, man, that's insane." So we get closer, dogs run off, and we start passing them. And I was curious, what did this dude have in his hands? Because remember, he had something in his hands.
Yeah.
Fucking pair of sunglasses.
Oh no!
That's what he was holding. So, whatever, it is what it is. So.
And that doesn't mean he was a good person, but it just means that it wasn't a detonator or a weapon.
So, and again, every effort was made to talk to this dude, stop him, but it kept coming. But I just thought that was crazy that this dude, he just kept fucking coming and lost his life over it. But what that 50 caliber did to that dude's body is just unreal.
50 cal and 50 meters is damage big time.
Yeah. So, but we get back into tracks, and they take us back to Bob Hotel. And I remember getting there, and we walk into the chow hall because we're starving, right? We've been fighting for fucking 3 days and exhausted, and low water and stuff, and we're dirty and shit. And fucking one of the chow hall Marines was like, "Hey, you guys need to clean up before you come in here." And then Gunnery Sergeant Collins comes in the chow hall, and he's like, "These fucking Marines are gonna eat. Shut the fuck up." So our guys came in dirty, really dirty.
Oh yeah.
And just they ate, to say the least.
Yeah, man. That's sometimes people get too far removed from what people are doing on the ground to have that common decency or that respect for what they're doing versus other jobs. I've seen that in the past as well. It's unfortunate, really it is, because you guys are damn near starving, haven't had shit. You've been in an op for 3 days, longer than you thought you were going to be in. People have died. People have gotten hurt. Platoon commander's gone. And all you're trying to do is get some chow so you can go clean up a little bit and get some sleep and try to wash that day off. Right. And then you have the dickheads. Starch press camis and, yeah, man. Yeah. Fun stuff there. Now, I'm assuming the lieutenant didn't come back. You said it blinded him. Was that like a permanent thing?
Yeah, no. So he got medevac for good. He was, his deployment was done. So our platoon essentially was, and I didn't even know this until I do my own show on my YouTube channel called Interview with Warfighters, and I was talking to one of the guys that was in that platoon with me, Zane Fisher, and he told me, and it reminded me that our platoon after that flight was essentially combat ineffective. We had one guy, 2 radio operators that were hit by snipers. We had dudes, our platoon commander was medevac. We had dudes that were, wounded from shrapnel and stuff. So it's essentially, we were beaten and bashed, but we fought, we hooked and jabbed, man. So it came time that the whole battle in Najaf would last about a month long.
Okay.
And after that initial fight in the cemetery, several raids were conducted. Bravo Company would be tasked with a raid, but our platoon was so battered from that initial 3 days of fighting that we actually they put us at the governor building, and the rest of Bravo went and launched a raid in Kufa.
Okay.
Just fucked up this major staging area for the Mahdi army, and the other companies launched their own respective raids, and then it was going to culminate with once the army got down there, the rest of the Marine Expeditionary Unit was hooking and jabbing. It got to the point where we had Al-Sadr and the whole Mahdi army at the freaking mosque, and we had them completely surrounded. And we were going to launch a final raid to rid the world of the Mahdi militia, right? And we were training these Iraqi special forces. We're going to do the actual inserting into the mosque so that we wouldn't piss off the populace, right? They were the ones that are going to step foot in their sacred religious site. But we were going to ramrod through enemy defenses, occupy the surrounding buildings, cordon it off, and then the Iraqi special forces were going to make entry into the mosque. That was the final mission. So we're literally geared up, ready to step. Guys are putting fucking face paint on. And one of my buddy did like the Ultimate Warrior with the face paint, and I've got face paint on, and we were all set. I mean, we were just gonna launch this gauntlet assault, and we literally were at our staging areas on the outskirts of the cemetery, ready to roll, ready to step on this thing, and this major head honcho, I think it's Sistani, Ayatollah Sistani or something like that, came back, and he was getting some medical treatment in the UK, and he brokered a deal between Al-Sadr, the Iraqi government, and all this other stuff, that the Mahdi militiamen would be allowed, the remaining Mahdi militiamen would be allowed to leave the fucking mosque as long as they left all their weapons and gear and all that stuff. So I mean,
did they do it? Did they leave their stuff?
Yep. So. Okay. We had them surrounded. They essentially surrendered, but per the deal, they were allowed to leave. So they came out, and all their weapons and gear and equipment and stuff was confiscated by us.
Nice.
That was the culmination of that battle. After
I mean, that's a great ending to a month-long shit show. You got the people. I mean, you would probably like to kill them, no doubt about it. You'd like to put them down, but at the end of the day, if they're shamed and, as long as they don't come back and fight you again, hopefully.
So the reality is, as much as I would love to have just annihilated them, and trust me, we all wanted to do that, no question. There's no question in my mind that we would have lost Marines launching that final assault.
Yeah.
No question. I know what the scheme and maneuver was. Like, literally, we were going to roll right up to the edge of the fucking mosque. One of our assault men was going to get off and shoot a fucking small rocket into the entryway of the mosque, right? And then we were going to occupy the buildings immediately adjacent to it, and then the Iraqi special forces were going to make entry. Check. Like, it was going to be a bloodbath. So we no question in my mind we would have lost Marines. And I think about it now, as much as I would have loved to just wipe them off the face of the planet, none of our guys' lives were worth fucking them. So
for an exclamation point, because you'd already fucked them up.
Right. Yeah. And I do want to point out, during the course of this battle, and this was after the initial 3 days, one of our Marines, Sergeant Harvey Parkinson, he was killed in the cemetery operations. So our company, Bravo Company, the other platoons, they would end up going in the cemetery later on after those initial 3 days.
And that's where he ended up falling at. And did he fall to small arms or mortars or?
He was for OIF 2, he was the assault section leader. In OIF 1, he was the mortar section leader. He was a mortarman, but they had moved him over to assault to be the section leader, and he was killed by an enemy mortar.
Okay.
And he was one of those guys. He was one of those sergeants that was, guy that I looked at in OIF 1. It's like, hey, this guy's fucking squared away. He's an amazing Marine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah.
Check. Well, damn, dude, that's packed in right there. That's packed in for sure. Now, does the rest of the deployment, at least on that deployment, does that deployment continue to be high tempo operations?
Yes. So shortly after the Battle of Najaf, the second offensive of Fallujah was getting planned and was in the works. Like shaping operations were taking place. So they had contacted us and they were like, hey, we want Bravo Company 1-4 to move up to Abu Ghraib prison. Yes, the famous Abu Ghraib prison, and relieve a rifle company from 3-1 so that they can go stage at Camp Fallujah because they're going to take part in the offensive.
Yep.
So we went up there. We ripped with them, took over their battle space, and their battle space was fucking awesome. So they lived in the prison. There was like a section of the prison because it was an army ran prison.
Yeah.
But there was a section that was that the Marine Rifle Company lived in. So we moved in there. I mean, my Marines were living in drunk tanks. It was awesome. It was a great spot. And all around the prison were these big, giant guard towers. So we get there, and the area around the prison, I think it was Nasawa Salam or something like that. It was hot. It was hot, and there was a significant IED threat up there, which we weren't really dealing with in Najaf. So like all of our vehicles, our Humvees, were like fucking, they had these like L-shaped iron doors. Like we didn't have these like luxury space shuttle fucking Humvees.
Yeah. Those first couple generations were rough.
Yeah. So when we first got there, I don't know if it was the Army or whoever, but they were like, hey, you guys need better vehicles for this AO. Like IEDs are a thing here. So we went up to, what's that big air base in Iraq?
Al-Qaim?
Al-Assad, I think.
Al-Assad?
I think it was Al-Assad. We go up there, we get a bunch of gun trucks from the Army. Fully equipped. Fucking 50 cals, Marks, 240s, the whole 9 yards. So we drive these suckers back down to Abu Ghraib prison so that we could operate with them. And then all of our other vehicles that we're using, they gave us these like Kevlar blankets. So like we're cutting these things up, and we're like 550 cord and 100-mile-an-hour tape, like rigging these things look like the Beverly Hillbillies trucks, right?
Yeah.
But here's the catch-22 to this, right? So there was an Army MP unit that operated out of the prison, and they would like patrol into the city, and they would get hit all the time. When we rolled out, they weren't fucking with us,
right? And
it was, I believe, because they saw our Beverly Hillbilly trucks, and they knew like, A, these are Marines.
Yep.
And it just B, like, even though we had lesser equipped vehicles and stuff, like they just knew we would turn and fight. Like
you gonna bring the sauce to them, yeah.
Right. The Army SOP at that time was like, hey, get out of the kill zone and then, break contact. Yeah. Our SOP was like, hey, fight through the kill zone and then close with the enemy and destroy them by fire and maneuver.
That's right.
So we get up to Abu Ghraib prison, and then Abu Ghraib prison for us was like the ideal infantry operation. Like we had a briefing room. We were running missions every day. We were doing raids. We'd go out and do foot patrols through the city.
Hell yeah.
Our CO is like, hey, we're going to be fucking active. The Fallujah offensive kicked off. Like Abu Ghraib prison was so close to where Fallujah was that you could hear the LAV 25 millimeter guns shooting. And you could hear Artie blowing the fuck out of that place.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And did you guys potentially have squirters from Fallujah come down to you?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just wonder if your tempo picked up as that offensive started up there.
We would get mortared every single day at around lunchtime. And there was like holding cells, like caged holding cells for EPWs, like out in the open, and like their own guys would get blown up by insurgent mortars.
Yeah, they didn't care about
every day, like small arms fire would fire on the prison. When the prison was pretty cool, because when that happened, like they'd have this like World War II air raid siren go off. And I remember one time my gunner and I was like, hey, let's go to the tower. So we crawl up in this tower, and I get up there and I like peek over the edge, and just it's like and like I'm looking over the edge, and all I can see is just the city, right? And it's like, where's the fire come from? I don't fucking know.
Yeah, man.
But the towers were just unloading. We would do foot patrols into the city on the outskirts of the prison, and like the walls would just be covered in impacts.
Now, were they probing you up that close? Would people?
Oh fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Yes, there was a VBED attack on the prison at one point, and one of the devil dogs up in the towers, not one of ours. I think it was a reserve artillery unit that became a provisional rifle company. They were doing the security at the prison, and one of these guys, man, fucking took out a VBED driver, and I remember driving past him and looking. He's like hunched over the cab of the fucking car.
Oh yeah.
And Cat went out there, shot a toe, and that sucker blew up like a football field sized crater.
Oh wow.
It was just loaded down with 155. Yeah.
Yep.
I've got a picture of me holding
bad.
like a piece of shrapnel.
Hell yeah. Well, that gunner, whoever that gunner was that killed him, ought to feel good because that would have rocked that prison.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so that's what's crazy is I think about all the amazing stuff that happened in the early days of GWAT. I mean, just the entirety of the GWAT, really.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about like how few like medals of honor have been awarded, and like Navy crosses and stuff, like real significant, really high up, meritorious type medals for valor. And it's just like me personally, like I don't think the Marine Corps has done a good job of recognizing more Marines.
Why do you think that is?
I think if you look at our lower awards, like so a Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, right? As an infantry Marine, if you get a Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal, like it's a big fucking deal.
Yep.
It's a big deal. But you go to the Army, man, all of their guys, like when they leave their deployment, like they get the ARCOMs, the Army Commendation Medal, the equivalent to a Navy com, like a step above a NAM.
Yep.
And I think the Army kind of overdoes it, and we significantly underdo it.
What's discouraging about it is if you go to West Coast, East Coast, doesn't matter. You go to ITB, Infantry Training Battalion on East or West, doesn't matter, or any of the Advanced Infantry Training Battalion schools, it's covered with Medals of Honor citations in the pictures, and 90% of them are PFCs and Lance Corporals. Okay. Right. Now, I don't want to sound, like a squeaky wheel or like shame on you, Marine Corps, but I think it is a thing. I think that command 100%. Structures should beat their chest at Lance Corporals getting NAMs and comms, and beat their chest at Silver Stars and Bronze Stars for their sergeants if they indeed, earned them. What I think is there's a criteria for an award, and if the Marine, regardless of his rank, meets the criteria for that award, that should be it. Yes, he met it. Boom. Did he meet the next one up? Nope. Okay, this is the one. And you award it, and you do that with honor, and you honor those people. They're going to live with those bad days for the rest of their life, because when you get a NAM, a COM, a Bronze Star, a Silver Star, it wasn't because the day was great. It wasn't because it was gravy. It was because it was arguably probably one of the worst days of those guys' lives, which again is why we should psychologically reward so they don't struggle so bad in the reality of what they did, right? Instead, what we do seemingly is we try to make sure we diminish it to the lowest common award that they could actually get. And a lot of times the criteria doesn't seem to be the founding doctrine of which they make those decisions. That's what it seems like. And then the older I got in the Marine Corps, it seemed like when you obtain that E6 and above rank, you would have those exit awards and you would get those make your career awards. And so, it's difficult because I don't know. I've never been on a panel. I've never read an award, summary of action outside of my own. And I've written Marines for rewards that didn't end up getting them, that I know were NAM worthy for what I wrote them. Right. So it's like, some of those things I agree with you on. I think the Army's probably a little bit loose. Also, same experience from what I've seen with the Army, but a little bit loose. But I do feel like Marines want to guard that gate and guard that castle for some reason, especially when it's younger junior Marines that are put up for it. And it's like, those are the fucking Marines doing the work. What do you mean, gunny with a Bronze Star coming out of this deployment? Tell me how you got in that position to get that. It doesn't make sense because in a regular, Marine outfit, you shouldn't be doing those things that you are said to be doing. Like, where was the PFCs when this happened, and the Lance Corporals and the Sergeants, And that's another, peculiar thing, or not peculiar, but interesting thing about the GWAT as a whole is that it was very much a platoon squad team fight. It was not very much a platoon company a battalion fight. It was very much not that. Maybe for you guys in that initial invasion, that initial push, but from there on out, it became that decentralized fight against insurgency of the same size or close to a same size enemy to friendly element. And again, maybe that's why awards got jacked up for us too, though, is before you're talking about, this is under the observation of a commanding officer, of company CO, of, maybe even a battalion CO that was on the ground with these guys maneuvering troops. And now you might have a corporal and you're taking his word. And if he didn't write it right, or if he didn't say the right things, or craft his statement the right way, maybe it didn't, you know what I mean? So maybe that has a little bit to do with the GWAT experience as well. I'm not sure. In the interest of time, I want to move forward, because I want to make sure that we get this all this time. Let's push forward from there. I know we're a couple months in at that point. Is that where we're at?
Yeah. I mean, that was like the first month in Iraq.
Yeah.
So
Abu Ghraib is like a month in, month and a half in.
It's probably two or three.
2 or 3 months in. Okay.
Yeah, I remember it was getting cold, so. But
September, October, November,
August. Yeah. So like 4 months into the deployment.
And does your deployment continue to go along those lines that you just kind of laid out, from raiding to security patrols out of Abu Ghraib and such?
Yeah. So like we went up there, like I said, for the Second Fallujah offensive while that was taking place, because we took over 3-1's a rifle company at 3-1's battle space. So we took over their battle space as soon as the Fallujah offensive was done and like things were calming down. That rifle company came back, and then we moved back down to like Fob Hotel. I remember we did some time in I think Kufa, Kufa or one of the other surrounding areas. And after that, it was just kind of like easy sailing.
Yeah.
Fallujah had been tamed, Najaf had been tamed. It really, honestly, to me at the time, it seemed like the fucking war was almost won.
And I think a lot of people can get that sentiment, especially, and you're talking about what year are we talking about? 04? Yeah, it had to be 04, 05.
Yeah.
4 for Phantom Fury.
Saddam was captured in between my first and second deployment. We go back, we fucking destroy the Mahdi army and Najaf. Marines and army units destroy, all the little Al-Qaeda wannabes up in Fallujah. We just crushed the enemy. So,
yeah.
From our perspective, like, how much longer is this thing going to go on?
Right.
The army. So.
Right.
So that was pretty much to kind of wrap up that deployment. Because after Abu Ghraib, it was kind of easy sailing for us.
Check.
We did lose one Marine at Abu Ghraib prison. Unfortunately, that was a self-inflicted wound.
Mm-hmm. Very familiar.
And I'm gonna talk about it just because it needs to be talked about.
Sure.
People need to recognize, as young, what were we, 20, 21-year-old Marines, everybody saw the signs with him. Everybody saw it. I remember one of my best friends, Adam Swarzy, great guy. He would end up actually becoming a Navy SEAL.
Right on. Shout out.
He was an assaultman, and I remember him saying to me, like a day or two before it happened, like, "Hey, fucking, something's going on with Maher. Like, it don't look good. I don't know." But nobody at our age, especially back then, thought that anybody would kill themselves.
Yeah.
Like nobody would. Like who would do that? Why would anybody do that?
Yeah.
So.
Now, was there something different that he experienced, or heavier that he experienced through that time, or was it just a resiliency issue, or?
I don't know, man.
Like something at home. I know I lost a guy to
Maybe.
self-inflicted, gunshot wound to himself in 2010, and it was one of them situations where we got spar war internet at the wrong time. Somebody that has been doing constant combat operations and trained blows with the enemy, and then all of a sudden gets to see like a fiance or a wife doing something unsatisfactory, and then boom, them dudes can snap. But this one sounded like that was kind of like a snap. This one you're talking about sounded like there was like people could tell something was going on with him.
Yeah, he was not married, single Marine. I don't know, man. I just I know the signs were there. It's just nobody thought it was going to happen. We were actually supposed to go out and set up an ambush that night. The Army MPs kept getting ambushed every time they'd go out. So our CO came up with an idea or a mission that we would go out, we would set up an ambush, Army would roll out, and we were going to be an L-shaped ambush, and we were just going to wait for the insurgents.
Yeah.
Ambush the ambushers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we geared up. We actually I think we put face paint on, or we were about to, I can't remember, but we were going to go to the chow hall, eat, come back, stage, and then get ready to launch. And we're like, hey, Maher, you want to go to the chow hall with us? He's like, no, man, I'm gonna hang back. We're like, okay. So we all went to chow, and then we come back, and it's like fucking dudes are running around, like, what the fuck's going on?
Did he shoot himself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Suicide's tough, man. I talk about it a lot. I hate it. I've lost more guys out than I have in combat. And, we all have to do our best, but sometimes people need to understand that if a person decides that that's what they're going to do, if they don't want you to stop them, you are not going to stop them. They're going to do what they're going to do. Just like this guy, case in point. You say, hey, man, let's go to the chow hall. Let's get some grub. We got this mission coming up. And it's like, no, I'm good. I'm straight. Thanks. And so if you say that, it's like, okay, well, he doesn't want to eat. He's straight, whatever. And then you come back and find that. Yeah, man. And a lot of times, I don't know. I'm always baffled by it because I don't understand it. I can't make it right in my head of why somebody would believe that was their only option, especially a service member that's got those foundational building blocks of resilience and tenacity and that warfighter culture. I don't get it. But hey, I think the big takeaway is if you ever have somebody that's worried about one of your compatriots and one of your Marines, one of your, soldiers, and they bring that up, hey, he's off, leadership should look into that, even if it's like, hey, let's keep him straight by the hip. He didn't have an option. Let's figure it out for him. But again, you can do everything you want to try to stop somebody from doing that. But if they want to do that, that's going to happen. We should just try to do the best we can to figure that out before it happens.
I think, the Marine Corps is leaps and bounds ahead of where it was back then in terms of dealing with this type of issue. It's still an issue, obviously, but compared to the mindset back then, it's like there was no training.
No.
Or
well, there wasn't even sympathy for it. Yeah, right. Yeah. So, totally agree. So that's going to kind of wrap your OIF 2 deployment.
Yep. So we after that, again, we moved back down south. It was kind of calm from there. We retrograded back, and we flew back, and then the homecoming this time wasn't like it was coming back from OIF 1. It was just
no red carpet.
Hey, yeah, it was like business as normal, and it was almost a repeat of like how things were. Like went on post deployment leave, and by this time it's just like, hey, now I've came back from my second deployment. Now I have to make the decision. I think I have a little over 1 year left in the Marine Corps. Like, hey, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Because now the Marine Corps is in full swing of like rotations for units to Iraq. Yeah. So 1-4 at this time, after post-deployment leave and everything, it was like, I think a Westpac was on the horizon. So 1-4 was going to go on a Westpac. And for me, it was like, do I want to go on a Westpac? Like, or do I want to go to another unit, go back to Iraq? Like, what are we doing? Yeah. But now we're back in the States. I'm fucking 21 years old. We've been fucking fighting for the last 2 years. Like, we were just going to go get some beer and some pussy, right?
That's right.
So my buddy and I, now that I'm 21, I go to the bars, and my buddy and I are going out to get some drinks, and we're talking to women. It's like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. We've been bribed with this our whole time. I meet my wife at a bar, a country bar, like one of 2 country bars in Southern California. So she's a freaking 10, and super cocky. Just got back from my second combat tour, and yeah, pretty much, dude, pretty much.
Yes.
And and I'm talking to her, and they're telling us like, hey, 1-4 is going to go on a Westpac, but in order for me to go on this Westpac, I have to extend my contract.
Yep.
So I just met this beautiful blonde, Southern California. She's actually from North Dakota, but she was in Southern California when she went to college down there. So I was like, the best of both worlds, right? Midwest personality, but that Southern California beach blonde beauty look, right? So
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, dude, I found her, right? This is her. So I'm like, if I go on this Westpac, is this woman get away from me? I just met
Right.
her.
Right.
So I had a tough decision to make. Like, am I going to stay in? Am I going to get out and like, see what happens with this freaking amazing 10 I just met? Um, so I made the conscious decision, man. I was like, dude, my whole life I wanted to join the Marine Corps, go to war. Well, I fucking went to war twice in my first enlistment in the Marine Corps.
Yeah. Most people got to wait a career for that.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, I guess I got that bucket list item done.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess I'll get out and go to college, because if I don't go to college now, I'm never going to do it. I'm not. I know my personality. The older I get, the less likely I'm going to do it. So I'm just going to use the GI Bill. Plus, you got to remember, like, 1-4 is going to Westpac. They're not going back to Iraq. The mindset at that time was, dude, the war's wrapping up.
Yeah.
It's going to be over soon. Afghanistan was like done. Like there was no talk of Afghanistan.
Yep.
We defeated the Taliban. It was over pretty much. So I'm like, oh fuck, I guess I had a good run. I'll leave. So I told my command, I was like, no, I'm not going to extend. I'm not going to reenlist. I'm going to get out. So one of our sergeants was like, well, we're going to send you over to 11th Marines, and you're going to go into the admin building over there to get some real world skills before you go into the civilian world. So they sent a bunch of us grunts over there to try to stick us in an admin shop to do admin work. Dude, it didn't work, man. Dude, we were shooting rubber bands at each other.
Oh yeah.
doing stupid infantry shit, right? Plus, we were integrating with female Marines for the first time. Never dealt with them.
Not good.
I know this sounds like a foreign concept to people. I never worked with a female Marine ever in my Marine Corps career until I got over to the Marines.
Yep.
So we go on a PT run, and the female Marines are falling out, and another buddy of mine, we're both corporals, and we're fucking chewing them a new asshole, right?
Yeah.
And Master Sergeant pulls us up. Master Sergeant that's at the admin shop pulls us in his office. He's like, hey,
can't fucking do that shit around here.
He's like, I was a grunt once. He goes, I get it, guys. He's like, but you can't do that here to them. Because
they aren't the same as you.
They aren't the same.
They're not your people.
I got to be careful with what I say. I'm still in, but
I know. It's a
he's
fact,
like,
though.
He's like, this isn't the infantry. He's like, you can't do that here. He's like, I get it. And we're standing there at parade rest. We're like, Master Sergeant, there's only one standard, the Marine Corps
What
standard.
the fuck? Marine's a Marine.
We're giving him that song and dance, right?
Yeah.
And he's smirking, man. He's like, I know, guys. He's like, I know. Just finish out your time.
Yeah.
So anyways, they end up pulling me out of the admin shop, right? I wasn't a good fit for there. They make me the training NCO and the SACO. So the substance abuse control officer. Handle the piss test. But it got me out of the admin shop. I was in the regimental headquarters battery, 11th Marines office. They gave me my own office. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
All I did was lift weights and work on McMat.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good little. What do they call that? TAD? Were you a TAD to that?
FAP.
Oh, you were FAP'd. Okay.
Yeah, I was FAP'd out to over there. Well, I mean, actually, it was just the inter-unit transfer because they had to get me out of 1-4 so that they could open up that boat space to replace me with a new guy from SOI.
Yeah.
So that's how it works. Like, as long as you're there in that unit, you're taking up a boat space, right? So they have to get rid of you in order to replace you.
Yep, that's right.
So all of us guys that went over there, we weren't extending, we weren't reenlisting, so they sent us over there to get these real world skills. So I went over there. I finished out the rest of my time and the on active duty there. And my wife, who's just my girlfriend at the time, had told me that she would move to Texas with me if I left, active duty and got out.
Well, that's a pretty good incentive.
Yeah, dude, and that was out without any talk of marriage or anything. So when she told me that, dude, I slapped the ring on that finger and moved back to Texas. So
hell yeah,
that's how I finished out my active duty time.
Now, when you transitioned out of active duty, how did that go?
We went through.
Obviously, you're back, but
yeah. Well, my intent was I was gonna move back to Texas and get work as an armed security guard and go to school.
Yeah.
To get a degree. So that was my thinking. I get back to Texas, and I'm literally like starting to miss the Marine Corps almost instantly.
Yeah.
Right. And I start putting together a shadow box of like all my Marine Corps shit. And I remember sitting there looking at my stuff, and I'm like, if there was only some way I could still be part of the Marine Corps. And I kid you not, that very moment, my phone rings. And I pick it up, unknown number, and I'm like, hello. And they're like, hey, Devil Dog, is this fucking, Sergeant Downing? I left active duty as a sergeant. And I was like, it is. Gunnery Sergeant. He's like, it's Gunnery Sergeant so-and-so, fucking prior service recruiter at the Joint Reserve Base Fort Worth. He's like, I bet you're missing that camaraderie and that esprit de corps. And I was like, I am, Gunny. He goes,
yes, I am.
he goes, well, have you thought about the reserves? And I was like, well, no, there's no infantry units close by me. He's like, well, what about a lap move into something? And I was like, with all due respect, Gunny, I'm like, if I'm gonna go back in the Marine Corps, I'm gonna do infantry shit.
Yeah,
I did non-infantry shit for my last 6 months to a year in the Marine Corps. I was like, I hated it. I was like, it was all right, but if I'm gonna do this, I need to go back in infantry. He was like, well, there's a rifle company, a Marine Reserve rifle company in Bossier City, Louisiana. It's about 4 hours from where you live. He's like, if you want, you can come down here. I can drive you out there and you see them training. They're drilling on such date.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, how soon can I get you in here to talk to you? I was like, I'll fucking be there tomorrow. So I go down there. I talk to Prior Service Recruiter. Fast forward a little bit. He drives me out to the unit. And as an active duty Marine, you always have preconceived notion about reservists, right?
Yep.
You almost look at them as like second-class citizens. So we get out there, and they were actually in the field, and they were doing a squad competition.
Nice.
So I get there, and these dudes are like crawling under barbed wire through the mud. They're going up cargo nets. They're doing all kinds of fucking moto shit, right? And I'm looking at them like, dude, I was like, the reserves ain't what I thought it was. I was like, these guys are hard, man.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing, they're doing active duty shit. So I joined. Freaking first drill to Marine Corps Reserves. It's what you call an admin drill. You just sit around and do a bunch of annual training classes and
sure.
get shots, medical. And I'm like, oh man, this is not what I thought it was.
This isn't the barbed wire.
Yeah. I stuck it out, dude. And then for the sake of brevity, fast forward, I doing the reserve thing, go to college, working full time, armed security. My plan is completely unfolding, how I saw. Around 2010, we're told that the battalion is mobilizing to go to Afghanistan. So I'm like thinking, oh shit, I never thought that I was ever going to get to go to Afghanistan. Here, the opportunity is presenting itself.
Yeah.
I'm like, yep. Battalion's got a force protection mission. We're going to go down to Helmand Province and occupy different areas and do that. So I was like, fuck yes. Tell my wife. My wife was on board with it. And the thing about a reserve mobilization is, dude, when you're on active duty and you're doing your workup, it's like it's business as normal, right? You might still get the weekends off. Yeah, you're going to go to the field a lot more, but like you're at your home.
Yeah.
Living outside of work, all that normal life, right? Reserve workup, no, you mobilize, you'll fly somewhere. In this case, it was Camp Pendleton.
Yep.
And you're essentially on orders for a year.
Yeah.
Like you do your whole workup on active duty.
Yep.
You're away from your family, so your deployment is like almost a year long, as opposed to like active duty deployment that's like you do your workup
and then
you do like
7 months.
month pump.
Yeah.
So, but we did our workup mostly at Camp Pendleton, which was weird because they had Mojave Viper going on, which is you think about the workup we did when I was on one, with 1-4 during 2004, we did a MUSOC qual and all sort of stuff. Now they have dedicated workup cycles at 29 Palms for Marine units going to like Iraq or Afghanistan.
Yeah, Mojave Viper.
Yeah, but we didn't do any of that, man. We went to Camp Pendleton, and because we were getting a security mission, like we weren't supposed to be taking fucking Marja or anything. Like we were supposed to be, setting up force protection at like Dwyer and Leatherneck, stuff like that, right? So we do all of our, workup training at Camp Pendleton. We deploy. Let's see, I wrote this down. We were at Camp Pendleton December of 2010. Is when we mobilized. Left in January of 2011. So February and March 2011 is when I got in country. So when we get there, our company, Bravo Company 123, we're tasked with providing security all the way up. I think it was called Route Red. It's from Camp Dwyer, which is kind of like a bigger forward, kind of like a super grunt base. Like there was an airfield. You could land kilos there, and I think C-130s. And then from there was patrol bases all the way up Route Red into Marja.
Yep.
And then in Marja there was a district center. So we had one platoon at the Marja district center, and then one platoon, actually two platoons. Weapons platoon became its own like rifle platoon. They had a patrol base. Another platoon had a patrol base, and then my platoon had one patrol base, and then I had to keep Marines also at Dwyer for aerial interdiction. And I'll explain that here in a second. So I had to divide my platoon up. I was a second platoon. I was platoon sergeant. Had to divide up my platoon into two sections. I kept one section at the patrol base, and they had some A&A with them. So it wasn't like they were undermanned. It's just like they had to split responsibilities with A&A and them. And then I had one section at Dwyer, and then every like 3 or 4 days out of the week, the section that was at Dwyer would do what's called aerial interdiction. And what that was is we'd go up in the CH-53s and with Cobras, and they would have this British helicopter that had this like specialized ground penetrating radar, and they would kind of scan the area, and they would look for like certain things, right? Certain patterns that the Taliban would use to transport narcotics. And when they found something that matched that, like whatever it was they were doing that matched that like MO, we would go interdict them. So the Cobra would go, it would essentially find these vehicles driving out in the middle of nowhere and fly right in front of them, stop them, and then our 53s would land, and we would get off, go, pull everybody out of the vehicles, search them,
That is such a dope ass mission.
Oh, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like sitting there, I'm like, dude, my first 2 deployments were badass. I was like, but this is fucking cool, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
This is like some fucking badass like shit. And I would rotate the sections from the patrol base. So it's like everybody was like getting some, right?
Yeah.
And
no, that's super cool.
And then the other thing about that, so it was my platoon and headquarters platoon at Dwyer there. And so unfortunately I had to be close to the flagpole in terms of like company leadership. So kind of had to deal with that a little bit.
Yeah.
But with that being said, anytime that the call came out from a adjacent battalion that was running like a battalion wide operation and they needed more elements, our platoon would be tasked with going and linking up with them and supporting them. So like I got to work with, I think 3-9 and 2-8. And what that would entail is like we would run when they would need like a screen or something. We would run the screen. So we got to drive around, different areas, different parts of the AO, link up with these adjacent battalions, and I'd link up with their OPSO, and my platoon commander and I, we'd talk to the OPSO of that battalion, and they'd be like, yeah, this is where we need your boys. And we'd fucking, go out there attached to whoever and run the mission. Yeah. And we did that, I think we did 3 major battalion wide operations like that, working with other, and it was fun, man. It was a fun deployment.
Yeah, that's good shit.
And the only downside, I mean, you can look at this as a perk too or a plus, and we never got engaged in any type of small arms fire.
No, I think that's a great thing. You chased the dragon in those first 2 deployments. There's no reason to look at it as anything but good at that. Yeah.
I feel bad though. I feel bad for like the junior Marines because I mean, dude, we were all over the place. We were all over Helmand, doing all this aerial interdiction. One of the missions we did, we were up in the air doing aerial interdictions, and they had intel for an HVT, so they diverted us, and like in the air, we like went after this HVT and landed on a compound, like fucking searched the compound. But
that's badass, dude. That's a good.
Yeah, we were the like only available unit that could get there in the quickest amount of time, right? So they diverted us, and it was badass, dude. I'm up in the cockpit with the pilots, and they're like, "Yeah, we're coming up. That's the hit," So I'm freaking giving dudes, hand and arm signals and trying to coordinate this raid like on the spot. It really was an awesome infantry mission, but you know, unfortunately, like that young '03 that did that deployment, they did all this cool shit, but they don't get the fucking combat action ribbon. You know, they did all these combat operations. They
Yeah.
don't get a combat action ribbon because, you know, the enemy never took a pop shot at them.
Yeah.
So, um,
Hey, I don't give a shit who you are, whether you got a car or not. Doing aerial interdiction of vehicles and HVTs and drug dealers is a pretty cool gig. I mean, and if you did it so well to the point where nobody even tried to fire at you, then you were doing it well, is what I would take from that. You know, that's cool.
it really was a fun mission, man. And, you know, the contrast of what, you know, how my deployment in Iraq went. Like when I showed up in Afghanistan, I had 12 freaking magazines on me,
Mm-hmm.
2 M67 fragmentation grenades. And then at one point I even had, you know, that's the thing about the reserves is like you can pull strings, right? So I was a staff sergeant on that deployment.
Yeah.
So I wanted an M4 with an M203.
Hell yeah.
Like nowhere in the Marine Corps, like as a staff NCO, as a platoon sergeant, are you going to get that?
No. No.
But when you're a reservist, you know,
You can get
you go like,
that.
hey, brother, hook it up, man.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, yeah, no problem, staff sergeant, I got you.
Yeah, man. No,
I
that's
do
dope.
want to, before I close out the Afghan deployment, I do want to say this though, like deploying with the reserve unit. You know, and again, I've got the experience of 2 active duty units, and then I got this reserve unit deployment, and I can tell you 100% that, you know, my Marines, after doing a workup and deploying, were on par, if not better, than most of their active duty counterparts. And you know, that gets validated every time, you know, I've gone to range 400, 29 Palms, and the coyotes like are watching our platoons and stuff, and like, you know, they'll tell us like, hey, you guys are doing this just as good, if not better, in some active duty units. So if you are an active duty guy and like you are the kind of guy, and I was that young Marine that was like, fucking reservist, fuck you, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, there's benefits to reserves. A reservist's contract, you know, actually drilling is 6 years, so you have guys that are in there longer. I had Marines at patrol bases, you know, that were turning wrenches, grunts that were turning wrenches on gun trucks and fixing them on their own because they're mechanics back in the civilian side of the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
No, there's
So
there's a lot of good fruit that they bring to bear from the civilian world and from those different occupations that they hold in their regular life, and I think that gets overlooked and kind of shadowed a little bit, especially by that Marine active duty jarhead. I actually deployed when I did my early Iraq deployment. I deployed over there with some reserve army guys, and they were part of a police interdiction team or pit team. Police. They were the ones that trained like the Iraqi police, you know, and got their books right and got their like logistics and stuff right. But we got into a couple of Harrier situations with those guys on a couple of different patrols where they needed inserted and security for you know, like a cop that was way out there or a police station that was way out there. And those guys knew what the fuck they were doing too. Like, and they'd been there for a while before we even got there. We fell in, they were already there. You know what I mean? With the other Marines running their security, but they were good. Like, and I had that same, you know, parochialism, like, well, we're going to fucking take these fucking reservists around all day long and they're going to get us fucking killed. Nope. It was quite the contrary. They were pretty good. So
you get a lot to just knowing what I know now, you know, you get a lot of NCOs that were like, just like me, right? They did their first 4 years in the Marine Corps. They get out as a corporal or a sergeant, and then they end up going into the Selective Marine Corps Reserve. And it's like they bring all that experience with them, the active duty experience, and then they teach their junior Marines, their reserve junior Marines, that those lessons learned, and that they bring that experience with them. So a lot of your NCOs and staff NCOs in the reserves are actually like seasoned dudes from active duty. They have active duty time. So that also strengthens the SMCR.
And I think that in your situation, specifically, you're not just bringing, hey, I was active duty experience. You're bringing real world, multiple combat tours, multiple engagements to bear. And like we talked about kind of in that last episode with you, once you met that dragon, that training takes on a whole new thing. So you take that kind of person and then put them into a role where their primary role is to train infantry reservists, yeah, man, those guys are going to get trained. And it sucks, but probably trained much better than somebody who hadn't had on the ground experience and knew the consequences to lack of training. And I'm not saying that you had lack of training with 1-4. I'm just saying,
yeah,
kind of like what I said in the last episode for me. I'd been to Iraq. I didn't really we hooked and jabbed a little bit, but it wasn't full on. But after I went into Marja and did that campaign, it was all training from there. You just didn't have enough time. There wasn't enough time to train them to be good enough, was how my mind worked. But you take that and you put that at an SOI, at an ITB, schoolhouse, or you put that in a reserve unit back home. Yeah, dude, that's exactly where that should be, and fostering those experiences. Well, right on. So, you're Sergeant Major now. We kind of covered that in the last episode. From 2011, from after that deployment to Afghanistan till now, fill me in those gaps. Are you still just kind of moved up in that reserve capacity?
Yep. Came back from Afghanistan. Now I got an Afghanistan combat deployment on my belt. I still was enjoying it. I picked up gunnery sergeant shortly after coming back from that deployment. Stuck around as the company gunny of that unit, and then as I, several years as a company gunny, I was getting close to being time for being in zone for First Sergeant. So they sent me over to Alpha Company 123 down in Houston, to get some experience, because their First Sergeant had just either retired or left, checked out. So they sent me down there. So as a gunnery sergeant, I filled in as a company First Sergeant with another company in the same battalion.
Yep.
So I was getting some experience there, and then I got selected for First Sergeant. That's that year after being sitting in the seat as a First Sergeant, as a gunnery sergeant. I got selected for First Sergeant, and my first tour ended up back at Bravo 123, which is unusual, right? So
it probably wouldn't have been if you weren't over there to get some experience, right?
Yeah. So it's actually funny because the guy, the sergeant major who puts everything together, right? He's the one that puts people in places. He calls me, and you got to fill out a wish list, right? Like what units you want. And I had put Bravo 123 as my top choice. Right?
Yeah.
So he calls me, and it's the Career Affairs Reserve Sergeant Major. He calls me, and he's like, hey, he's like, Bravo 123 is open. He's like, see, you're interested? And I'm like, I knew that it's not common for a First Sergeant to go or be the First Sergeant at his current unit, right?
Yeah.
Usually they want to take you out of your element and send you off somewhere you knew, because they don't want, people knowing you that grew up with you to be around. They want you to develop somewhere else. So he told me, he's like, hey, Bravo 123 is open. You want it? And I'm like, well, Sergeant Major, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I never thought you guys would put me there, but absolutely. That's absolutely where I want. And he goes, wait a minute. He's like, is that where you're coming from? I was like, yeah, it is. He goes, fuck that. That goes against everything I believe in. He's like, you're not going there. So he pretty much hangs up the phone with me. I get told via email that I'm going to go to an anti-tank training company in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, which is still infantry. It's tow gunners, right?
Okay.
I'll explain that a little more here in a second. But a week or two passes, and I'm on the impression I'm going up there. He calls me back, and he's like, hey, I hate to do this. He's like, some shit fell through. He goes, but Bravo, we got to send you to Bravo 123.
Sweet.
I'm like, all right, sweet. So I go back, and I ended up becoming the company First Sergeant in my old rifle company I went to Afghanistan with. I was like, well, this is divine.
That's dope. Yeah, that's super cool.
I'm like, we're about to go back to Afghanistan, and I'm going to be a company First Sergeant. That will be the cherry on top of my career, right? So I'm there a year or so, and they tell us that one rifle company in the battalion is going to go back to Afghanistan for a security mission. And I said, fucking dude, the planets are aligning, dude. This is it. So we go to 29 Palms, and my company, Bravo Company, just whoops it on. We kill range 400. The Coyotes were super impressed. The whole battalion was amazed. The battalion commander came out, gave all the NCOs and staff NCOs the battalion coin, because we just whooped it on. And we're like, dude, we got this. We smoked range 400. We're the best company in the battalion. And then they come out and they're like, yeah, we're sending Alpha Company. I'm like, you got to be kidding. So I was crushed, right?
Damn it.
Like, this was the plan. This is like God's plan, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, anyways, I get a call after they make that announcement. I get a call a couple weeks later, and they're like, hey, the company First Sergeant that's at Alpha right now can't do it. He's like, his life isn't going to support an Afghan deployment. He's like, word on the block is First Sergeant Downing, you want to go. And I'm like, I'd rather go with Bravo, but if that's how I'm going to get to Afghanistan as a company First Sergeant, I'll go.
Yeah.
They're like, okay. AT's coming up in a month or two. He's like, we'll make the switch. You'll go with Alpha Company to Afghanistan. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it. So coming up on AT, get a switch to go to, Alpha Company, back to Alpha Company to go on this deployment to Afghanistan. Freaking Obama administration takes over. They can't the deployment. Nope. U.S. forces are drawn down. No, nobody from the 123 is going to Afghanistan.
Oh, man.
Motherfucker. So I just finished out my time with 123. I also did some cool stuff. I got to go, when I was still gunning, I got to go to the UK, do a not a left seat, right seat, an exchange program with the British Royal Marines.
Yeah. How was that?
That was phenomenal. Phenomenal training. British Royal Marines are
they're no joke.
Awesome dudes, hard guys. The training I did with them was it was tough.
Did you drink with them?
Man. Oh, they are fish.
They are fucking professionals, bro.
They are no joke. And I was fucking shithoused, and they got my ass up at fucking 06, and we went to the field, and they looked at me and they're like, mate, are you too intoxicated to check out a rifle? And I said, no, I'm good. Let's go. They give me a rifle, dude. We get on a bus and fucking, we're all fucked up. And we went out there to the field, and they were doing it's called juniors and seniors. It's like their equivalent of like a squad leader course. It was 2 or 3 days of just nonstop missions.
Yep.
So they would give you a frago. You'd have to build a train model. The patrol leader would have to develop a 5-paragraph order. They'd give the brief, and then we immediately step off on the mission, do the mission, and before you stepped off, you had to destroy the train model. We'd come back. The second we got back, they'd drop another frago on a new leader, and you had to build the train model again, and then we just did that for like 72 hours.
Yeah.
It was insane. No sleep. So
yeah, I've trained with a couple of those guys, and they always impressed me, always. Now, some of them were fucking crazy, just like, some Marines are crazy. Really fucking crazy. But they were awesome. I trained with them in FAST. I had them, we were over on a British Royal Air Force base in Cyprus, and I got to drink with them and train with them a little bit, and it was pretty dope.
They had
pretty good dudes.
No less than 3 bars in their home training center.
Oh yeah.
There was a bar for the officers. There was a bar for there was a bar for the officers and staff NCOs, a bar for the NCOs, and then like a junior Marine bar. And I'm like,
shit house.
Why isn't the Marine Corps like this?
Oh man, I feel like sometimes we are like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. So you are a sergeant major. When did you pick up sergeant major?
It was 2022.
And
yes.
you still at the same place or no?
No. So after I did, so your first tour is a 3-year tour.
Mm-hmm.
So I did my first 3 years as a first sergeant at Bravo 123, and then I went over to. I ended up going back to the unit that I was originally supposed to go to when I first picked up.
Okay.
So
the toes.
Yep. So
okay.
Anti-Tank Training Company is up in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. A bunch of Oklahoma boys, good dudes. And how this works, it's like all the tow gunners for the respective reserve infantry battalion and their like weapons companies, they all come and consolidate at Broken Arrow and do tow shit, right? They do tow specific training. And when those infantry battalions want their tow gunners, they ask for them, and then those guys fly and join up with that battalion and go to the field with them.
Check. That makes sense. Okay.
When they're not doing, when they're not with their battalion that they're attached to in the field, they're back there at anti-tank training company learning, tow stuff.
Gunnery. Yeah.
specific training. So it was a really cool experience being there, and it was kind of like a sergeant major primer because I always had Marines all over the place, and as a sergeant major, like that's how you are when you're a battalion sergeant major. Like you got fucking battalions, or excuse me, you got companies or batteries, depending on who you're with, like in other states, right? They're not co-located with you, so you got to learn how to deal with that. So
yeah, and you can even deploy like that now. I know 3-6 a number of years ago they had one company. They had one company in Afghanistan, they had one company in Iraq, and they had one company somewhere else. And I can't for the life of me think about where that other place was. It was non-combat place. But so then that sergeant major and battalion commander are like dealing with, multiple countries. That's, multiple states, multiple countries, the logistics, and then the, just keeping your counts up with the personal equipment. That's pretty challenging, I would assume. Or do you just block it down like 3 different missions?
So are you talking about when with the tow guys?
I'm just saying when you're a sergeant major, you're at that battalion level, and you have so many different pieces at, either in different states or different, theaters. I'm sure that becomes, difficult to track.
It's a pain in the ass. Let me tell you. So I picked up, I think my actual promotion day was March of 22. March 22 might have been when I got frocked, but either way, I checked into an artillery. So that's one thing about the Marine Corps that's different than the other branches of service. When you become an 8999, which is the MOS for first sergeant and sergeant major, the Marine Corps expects you to be able to do first sergeant or sergeant major things at any unit. So we're no longer 0331 machine gunner Brent or 0369 infantry unit leader Brent. It's fucking, you are 8999 first sergeant major.
Yep.
And you can go do that job at any unit, right? Because you're doing first sergeant stuff or sergeant major stuff. You're not doing technical MOS stuff.
Right.
So I got moved to, when I picked up sergeant major, they sent me to 214. It's a HIMARS rocket artillery unit.
Hell yeah.
So I know jack shit about artillery. I've been a grunt my whole entire Marine Corps career.
Yep.
But now I'm the battalion sergeant major of a HIMARS rocket artillery unit. And we have rocket batteries, not all co-located in the same state. They're spread out.
Yep.
So
HIMARS is like the hand of God when you're on the battlefield too.
Oh, I mean,
it just shows up and busts that sound barrier and shit goes away.
Yeah. And we're seeing that in Ukraine, the effectiveness of HIMARS. Now, like, everybody wants HIMARS.
I used HIMARS in the push in 2010, and it did that. The munition did what it was supposed to do. There was some error in. You supposed, like, at the time our SOP was to use a 10-digit grid. It should be accurate within to a yard. And it was not accurate to within a yard. And so then after further research, it was definitely not used the 10-digit grid that was shot. It was they used the GRG map, which happened to be off by like 350 meters or so. So I tried to get it to hit this building where I had snipers just shot one of my saw gunners, it ends up hitting this building with collateral damage involved and such. So, but HIMARS in and of itself, I think you can fire them bitches from like 90 clicks out and hit within to a square meter. That's pretty dope.
It's pretty impressive. And, I've been at my unit now almost 2 years, and I've seen a lot of the shoots and just some of the capabilities that they've had. They'll do what's called a high rain. Yeah. They'll drive their launchers up onto a C-130. The C-130 will fly to a firing area, right? The vehicle will drive off, go to its firing point, shoot its rockets, and then come back, load back up on the C-130 take off.
Wow. No, I didn't think that was what you're going to say. I know they have multiple angles, though, that you can fire that rocket from. Like, if you wanted to come horizontally into the building, you can call for it to come horizontally. If you want it to come up and come straight down through the roof, it can do that, too. It's an amazing weapon system.
100%.
Even, and you know what, I just, I didn't really learn about it until recently. I was asked on a podcast I was on how much how much explosive net weight there is. And it's not a lot in a HIMARS rocket. It's not a lot, but it's fucking devastating to whatever it is. That's a fact. Well, right on, man. We're at 3 hours tonight, and we did 2.5 for that first episode, but we laid it down nicely, man. And I appreciate you being transparent and and getting into some of those memories, especially the cemetery there, and then in that first episode, kind of walking through that invasion, even though it was a little bit monotonous, and I'm sure even more so for you guys that were actually experiencing it. Mop 4 and then off, and then mop 4 and then off, and coming up in the tracks, and if you guys haven't watched that last episode, go back and watch that last episode, and you can kind of get a feel for that generation kill style push all the way up to Baghdad, and then finish it off here with some OIF 2 and then OEF coming in, which is super dope. But Brent, I greatly appreciate you taking the time. I look forward to picking your brain in the future, and definitely watching some more of those shows and the content that you have coming out. Brent0331, that's a handle on social medias, and then you also have the pretty successful YouTube channel where you go over, if you want to just plug that real quick for me, you go over gear reviews and interviews and different things. If you were to shout out to my crowd and just give them your elevator pitch, hit them with it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can check. The whole reason I started that YouTube channel is essentially to provide small unit tactics and just the stuff I learned in combat, to be able to reach out to young Marines or even soldiers, so those lessons aren't lost, right?
Absolutely.
So that's mainly what I focus on: small unit tactics and infantry related content. And I absolutely do gear reviews and interview young warfighters like you're doing. If I can just say one last thing, is the 20-year anniversary of the Battle of Najaf is coming up. I kind of took the reins on planning the reunion. So all of those guys are gathering at Camp Horno this August. And we're going to do a memorial hike up to the memorial that overlooks Camp Horno. There's some crosses up there to honor our fallen. And then after that, we're going to, go to a venue and drink some beer and have a good time and reminisce. But since
sounds great.
I'm organizing that. There's a reunion company out there, or organization called Legacy Military Unions. And, if anybody wants to donate to not just our reunion, but they're going to be doing other units reunions in the future, they're an excellent, outstanding organization.
Legacy
Military Unions.
Legacy Military Unions?
Yeah, I'll shoot you the address.
Yeah, shoot me the stuff so I can put it up in the bio so guys can check that out. Hey, reunions are a big thing, whether you're fresh in, fresh out, been out for a while, getting with guys that you did work with. There's something that it does for you that's nothing but a net positive. So guys that hear of reunions coming up, hey, do your best to try to get at those if you can, because it will be better for you 100%. And I'll tag that stuff in the bio. As a matter of fact, I'll talk to you about that offline, but that'd be super cool to get out there and see that. First Sergeant's Hill is a place where you can feel them. So, all right, right on, guys. Well, hey, just like every other episode, choices, not chances. If you've seen something in this that other people need to hear, something that resonated with you, don't be selfish with the information and share it out. And hey, we appreciate you. If you guys aren't sharing this stuff out and you're not taking this information in, then I'm not going to do it anymore. So keep doing it, keep pushing it out there, and we'll get better together. Until next time, this is Choices, Not Chances. Not too far. You're marking a building. Hit him. Yeah, that's good. That's a good shot. That's money.
Yeah. Louisiana Gun Shop, your firearm headquarters, specializing in concealed carry guns, ammo, and training. You can get your Louisiana permit with us. Also a large selection of AR-15s, or if you are that build-it-yourself type of guy or gal, we have all the parts to build and customize your own AR-15. Glock, SIG, Taurus, Ruger. We have all the brands, both in the store or at LouisianaGunShop.com.